Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the deep woods, where the trees press close and the wind carries sounds that might not be just the wind. We're stepping into the rough-barked, dirt-floored world of early American frontier families. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this, but you'll feel like you did, and that's almost as good. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, what time is it where you are? And what city are you watching from? Always curious. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You duck under the low beam of your cabin door, the same one you split and nailed in place just last fall. Your hands are calloused. Your clothes are stiff from wood smoke and sweat, and your knees ache from crouching to plant beans in the rocky soil today. You glance behind you. The sun's just gone under, painting the treetops in burnt orange, but down here on the forest floor, night has already slipped in like a shadowy guest who doesn't knock. And your cabin, your home, your shelter, your only real defence sits like a wooden box dropped into the unknown. It's nothing fancy. 2 rooms if you're lucky, more like 1.5. Walls of rough-hewn logs notched and stacked tight, chinked with mud and moss. A split-rail roof you still don't trust when it rains. The window, holes with wooden shutters, no glass, cold comes in easy. So can other things. Inside, the fire's been banked low. You're saving what little wood you have until true dark settles, and even then, you won't want too much light spilling out. That's a beacon to anything watching in the woods, man or beast. You've got stew on the hearth, a pot of beans and whatever else you scrounged up, salt pork if you're lucky, squirrel if you're not. The scent is rich, but to a hungry bear or a hungry man, it might as well be gold. You hear it then, something stepping on a stick. Not far, you freeze, head tilted, another step. Too slow for a deer, too heavy for a raccoon. It could be nothing, could be everything. You move quiet, back toward the door, and ease the shutter open just an inch. No moon tonight, just silhouettes of trees, thick black lines against a charcoal sky. It's these moments, the ones when you don't know what you're hearing, that frontier life really gets its teeth into you. You can feel how alone you are. No neighbours for miles. No roads, no sheriff, just you, your family, and a thin set of wooden walls. Out here the cabin isn't just a home, it's a barricade. A line in the dirt, a no against the vast wild yes of nature. You listen again. The sound's gone. Could have been a possum, or a man testing your nerves. Either way, the fear coils up inside you, slow and quiet, like a rope snake curling under a rock. You slide the shutter shut and wedge a bit of kindling between the slats, just in case someone tries to peek back. Your wife's already moving, wordless. She hands you the long rifle. It's yours, sure, but out here it's everyone's responsibility. You check the flint, make sure the pan's dry. 1 shot, maybe 2 if you're lucky with the reload. You lean it by the door within reach. Here's something they never tell you in books about the frontier. Everyone's afraid at night. Doesn't matter how tough you are or how long you've lived out here. The dark presses in just the same. People talked big during the day, about the bears they shot, the raiders they scared off. But at night, every man had his ear to the wall and his hand near his weapon. Funny thing is, despite all the worry, most cabins weren't even locked. Not in the way you'd think. No brass keys, no iron latches, just a wooden bar dropped into iron loops or a thick log wedged against the door from the inside. If someone wanted in bad enough, they'd get in. The trick was to make them wonder what they'd find if they did. And there you are, sitting now on a 3-legged stool, listening to the kids whisper in the loft above you. You told them to sleep, but you can hear the tension in their voices. They're not used to the silence yet. They're still learning what's normal out here and what isn't. You wish you could tell them that it gets easier, but that'd be a lie. You just get used to being afraid. Someone once said that the scariest thing on the frontier wasn't the bears or the storms, it was the waiting. The constant pause before something might happen. And tonight, you're waiting like always. The stew bubbles low. You stir it once, slowly, and listen again. Every pop from the fire sounds louder than it should. You start to count your mental checklist. Shutters secured, fire low, gun ready, dog inside, oh right, the dog. You whistle softly, and a moment later a muddy brown hound pads in from the shadows, ears twitching, eyes alert. She settles near the hearth but doesn't lay her head down. She's listening too. You try to relax, but you can feel the eyes on the back of your neck. Real or not, it doesn't matter. Out here, paranoia is practical. and you don't get to sleep deep. Not tonight. Probably not tomorrow either. Here's a strange bit of frontier history for you. Some families used to hang dried snake skins above their doorways. Said it kept witches out. Others nailed horseshoes to the beams to ward off bad luck. And a few just scratched their prayers into the walls and hoped they'd be heard. The truth? Most of it was just ritual. The illusion of control. You cling to anything that makes the night feel a little less endless. A little less wild. You check the door one last time before you settle on your straw mattress. The bar is in place. The hound growls once in her sleep and the woods creak on like they always do. Never sleeping, never still. The door's barred now, but it doesn't feel like much. A single slab of wood across 2 iron loops and maybe a chair pushed up under the handle for good measure. It gives the illusion of security, but you know better. You've seen what a determined man or animal can do to a pine board. Still, you do it anyway, because not doing it feels like giving up. You settle back against the wall and stretch your legs out slowly. Every joint gives a little crack, like the creaking of old barn doors. Your body's earned that. By the time the sun sets, your muscles feel like rope pulled too tight. But it's not the physical pain that gets you, it's the constant alertness. The way your ears never quite shut off, even when your eyes do. And tonight, like most nights, you won't be sleeping too deeply. The kids have finally gone quiet in the loft, bundled under quilts that still smell like the line they dried on, sun, smoke, and maybe a hint of lye soap. You smile to yourself just for a second. There's something peaceful about that soundlessness. The way a cabin finally exhales when everyone settles. You've got your wife at your side, the fire glowing low, and for a flicker of a moment it feels like the danger is far away. But then comes that thought again. You didn't lock the door. Not really. The thing about most frontier cabins is they weren't built to be fortresses. They were built to be fast, cheap, and just good enough to keep out the rain. Locks, fancy luxury. Metal was expensive and a skilled blacksmith even more so. Most settlers didn't have keys. What they had were latches, a simple wooden peg that rotated into place, or maybe a thick branch wedged against the inside of the door. It was all about deterrence. If something wanted in badly enough, the door wouldn't stop it. Your presence had to. Some families tied ropes to the inside handles, looping them tight and securing them with pegs. Others stacked barrels, crates, or furniture behind the entry, more as a noise alarm than a real barrier. If something busted through, at least you'd hear it first. And then there were the desperate tricks, like the nails, driven through boards and laid spike up near entryways in the dirt outside, hoping to catch an intruder's bare foot. You might even hang a string of old pots and pans across the doorframe, like a frontier burglar alarm. The clatter alone could wake the dead, or at least give you a second or two to grab the musket. Still, deep down, you know it's all about stalling, not stopping. Stalling long enough for you to react. It wasn't just two-legged dangers you were worried about. Bears could crash through a door like it was made of paper. A wolf pack, if guarding enough, armour might circle and test the shutters, pressing snouts between cracks to scent food or people. That's why so many families placed rocks or even logs against their shutters every night, not to keep them closed, but to brace them so they're shut. You rise quietly and double-check yours. The left shutter squeaks when you nudge it, so you spit into the hinge and rub it with a bit of fatback grease. Not elegant, but effective. It'll be silent if you need to open it fast. You press your palm against the wood, feeling how cold it's already grown. Outside, the night has thickened. Even the crickets have quieted. That's not a great sign. You return to your pallet by the wall and lower yourself onto the woven straw mattress, still warm from your earlier rest. Your rifle is propped within reach, as always. Just beside it, a horn of powder and a small pouch of lead balls. You don't expect to use them, but then again no one ever really expects to. Your wife is still awake. You can tell by the way she breathes. Not quite steady enough for sleep. Her eyes catch yours in the firelight. No words are exchanged, just a glance. But the meaning is clear. You hear that too, right? A soft rustling far off. Maybe a branch falling. Maybe more. Both strain to listen, holding your breath. And then, nothing. Just wind. Or what could be wind. Just a squirrel, you finally murmur, mostly for yourself. But it's not comforting, because sometimes the most dangerous sounds are the ones that don't come back. It's when the woods go still, truly still, that your instincts sit up straight. You lay back, one hand still curled loosely near the gun stock. The fire crackles, sending up the occasional spark that winks out before reaching the rafters. Smoke curls toward the chimney hole. It smells like safety, like control, like someone tamed a bit of the wild and told it to behave, for now. And yet, even now, you're mentally replaying everything you might have missed. Did you check the back window shutter? Did you feed the dog? Is the axe inside or still leaned against the chopping block? Because you do not want to be barefoot in the dark looking for an axe if something tries to get in. You chuckle softly, because this is the strange rhythm of frontier life. Spend all day breaking your back to build something and all night worrying about what's coming to tear it down. Here's a fun little detail you might not expect. Some settlers believed placing a broomstick across the threshold would stop witches from entering. They'd trip or forget what they were doing or be forced to count the straws. Sounds ridiculous now, but after a week of listening to things move in the dark, you would try just about anything. Scholars argue to this day about how effective these early defences really were. Some say settlers exaggerated the danger, used the wild as a canvas for their fear and folklore. Others believe the threats were real, constant, and immediate. The truth, as always, probably lives somewhere in between. A mix of isolation, very real dangers, and a healthy dose of whispered stories told over fires just like yours. Your eyes start to droop, heavy from the long day and the even longer evening. But still, that little thread of awareness stays taut inside your mind. One ear open, one thought looping. Did you do enough? You shift under the quilt, the scratchy wool tugging at your legs. The hound near the hearth lets out a low groan, stretching, then settles again, nose twitching. You take that as a good sign. Animals know. They always do. The fire's nearly embers now, casting faint red shadows on the log walls. Your family sleeps. You will too, eventually. Maybe, just not all the way, because the door's not really locked. And out here it never truly is. The fire's a dim pulse now, just glowing coals winking in and out like tired eyes. The hound hasn't moved in a while. That's a good sign. You've learned to trust her instincts more than your own. She's not shy about growling when something's off, and she doesn't care who she wakes up in the process. You would let her bark the roof down if it meant a few seconds warning. Out here, warnings matter more than fences, more than locks. They're the difference between waking up and, well, not. You sit up slowly and grab the kettle hook, swinging the iron pot just a little closer to the coals to keep it warm. There's still a bit of stew inside, thick with beans and fatback, and the scent is holding in the room like a warm blanket. It's comfort, but it's also bait. Every good thing has its risk out here. Your wife stirs beside you, lifting her head. "Fire's low," she whispers. "I know." "You gonna do the fire trick?" You nod. Already on your feet, the floor creaks once beneath you. You give the dog a gentle nudge with your knee, and she rises, stretching out her long limbs before padding to the door. You grab a few embers with the iron shovel, still glowing orange, and slip them into a small tin lantern, one you made out of punched scrap metal, full of little holes that throw wild speckles of light. It's not meant to light the way for you, it's meant to suggest something to whoever, or whatever, is out there. You unbar the door slowly, easing it open with your body leaned into the weight. Outside, the air slaps you in the face, cold, damp, heavy with pine. Every sound is louder out here. The sighing trees, the distant owls, the occasional snap of a twig in a way that doesn't feel accidental. You step out bare feet against packed dirt and scan the tree line. Nothing. No movement, no eye shine. You walk 20 feet from the cabin and set the lantern low in the grass, shielding its glow with your body as best you can. You place it near a stump a little to the side of the front door, at just the right distance to throw long shadows across the clearing. You don't want it too close. You want the light to play tricks. A figure walking near it might be visible just long enough for you to react. This is the watchfire trick. It's not a fire meant to warm, it's a decoy, a trap of light and shadow. The idea is simple. Make it look like someone's awake, maybe sitting up late with a musket across their lap. Or make it unclear how many people are moving around inside. Maybe 2, maybe 10. You let the light flicker and whisper, and the forest, full of eyes, starts asking itself questions. It's not foolproof, of course, nothing is, but you'd be surprised how often hesitation can save your life. A lone raider or a hungry predator might just pause long enough for you to make the first move. And on a frontier night, that first move is everything. You glance up at the moon, just a sieve of a tonight, barely enough to see by. That helps. A full moon is like betrayal in the sky, makes shadows vanish. makes you too easy to track, too easy to target. Some old folks say you can tell how dangerous a night will be just by looking up. If the moon's bright and the stars are sharp, maybe it's time to sleep with one eye open. You move back to the cabin, leaving the lantern where it is. The dog pauses halfway, ears forward. Then, satisfied, she trots ahead and slips back inside. You follow and bar the door behind you twice this time. Not because the bar changed, but because you did. Settling in again, you take a breath and try to let your body relax. It doesn't. Not yet. You listen instead. There's a rhythm to nighttime sounds once you learn it. The distant call of a night bird, the small rustles of mice in the walls, the slow shifting of timber as it cools. These are the normal sounds. What you're listening for is what's missing. Some families in the backwoods used to tell each other that if the owls stop hooting, something's wrong. That's when the forest holds its breath. And when the forest holds its breath, you hold yours. Tonight everything seems stable. Uneasy, yes, but stable. You think for a moment about the old man who told you the watchfire trick in the first place. He'd lived near the edge of the Delaware River back when cabins were few and danger was common. He swore by the lantern, said it saved his life 3 times and his goats' lives 5 more. "Make 'em think you're watching, even when you're not," he said, toothless and grinning. "People don't mess with ghosts or men who might be ghosts. Not a bad theory. Out here, half of staying alive is pretending you're harder to kill than you really are. Scholars argue about this trick. Some say it was widespread, others say it was just a handful of frontier folk doing what they could with what little they had. There are almost no written records about it. Just the occasional journal, the rare letter, or oral histories passed down and half forgotten. But it makes sense, doesn't it? When your only weapon is suggestion, light becomes a kind of camouflage. You shift under the blanket again and glance at the faint line of light leaking through the shutter slats. It dances slightly, wind moving the branches outside, or maybe something more. Your pulse answers it like a drum. The gun is still by your side, powder dry, just in case. The fire gives a little pop and the dog stirs, but she doesn't growl, so you don't either. That's your contract with her. She alerts, you react. Until then, you conserve energy. You wait. And oh, the waiting is the frontier's cruelest joke. You don't fight most nights, you don't flee, you don't scream or swing an axe or dive through the back window. You wait, in silence, in alertness, in the kind of stillness that knots your spine and ages you 5 years for every season that passes. But the lantern's out there now, casting false truths, whispering suggestions, telling the dark things that maybe, just maybe, you're watching too. And sometimes, that's enough. You hear her long before you see her. A low, steady growl, more vibration than sound, starts in the hound's chest. No barking yet, just warning. That's what she does when something's out there and she's not sure what. You don't move right away. Movement is for when you know. For now, you listen. The dog's ears twitch, then angle toward the west window. Her nose lifts. You follow her eyes, tracking invisible motion across wooden walls. Your wife sits up, clutching the edge of the quilt. The kids stir in the loft above, shifting in the straw. You hear one of them suck in a breath through their nose. Even asleep, they know. The house changes when something draws near. It tightens like a drum. It waits. You grab the musket by the barrel and stand slowly. Quietly, a cold rivulet of sweat runs down your spine. You ease to the west window and press one eye to the shutter slats. There's the lantern glow, flickering against tree trunks and throwing warped shadows, but no motion, no movement. Then, there. A figure not moving, just there. Could be a bush. Could be worse. It's too far to tell, too still to judge. The hound growls again, low and long. You place your hand on her back to calm her, and her muscles twitch like bowstrings. She wants to run. You don't blame her, Ute. This is why you keep a dog. Not just for hunting or companionship, but for the middle of the night, when your eyes lie and your ears ring, and you need something else, something simpler, to tell you the truth. The dog doesn't debate, doesn't overthink. She knows. On the frontier, a good dog could be worth more than a gun. Guns jam, powder gets wet, dogs stay awake. A dog hears what you miss, smells what you can't, and reacts before you know that there's anything to react to. There are stories, dozens, probably hundreds of dogs dragging children back inside seconds before a bear charged the yard. Of dogs throwing themselves at strangers who got too close to the cabin. Of dogs standing between a sleeping family and whatever waited in the dark with yellow eyes and patient hunger. Your hound does none of that tonight. She simply waits, tensed, alert. You kneel beside her, both of you staring through the slats. Your wife hands you the powder horn silently. She's already moved to the back window, scanning her side. Her hands tremble, just a little. A noise, a quick shuffle in the leaves, then silence. The shape by the lantern is gone. You wait. A minute, two, nothing. Then you crack the shutter open an inch and peer out again. Just the woods, still and black as ever. Could have been a raccoon, a possum, or something with fingers. Your wife whispers, "Still out there?" "Maybe," you answer. "Could have been wind." She doesn't believe that, and neither do you. You close the shutter and slide the latch into the place. The fire's burned lower still, so you bank it tight. Cover it with ash to smother the glow. No sense advertising. You sit back down, musket across your knees, and exhale through your nose. "I hate this part," she says softly. "Which part?" "The not knowing." You nod. That's the part that eats you alive. Not the danger, but the maybe. The half-formed question marks lurking between the trees. Your wife wraps a shawl around her shoulders and returns to bed. You know she won't sleep, not yet. Not until something shifts, not until the dog lays down again. A log settles in the hearth with a sigh. Outside, the hound growls once more, softer this time. More of a warning to the dark than to you. And just like that, it passes. She curls into herself beside the door, tucks her nose beneath her tail. That's the sign. Whatever it was, it's gone. You exhale again, longer this time. This isn't even the first time this week. The hound's growled twice since Tuesday, one of those times you caught the gleam of animal eyes at the edge of the tree line. Low to the ground, reflective. Probably a bobcat, maybe a wolf. Both would get brave if they smelled something worth the risk. Not long ago, your neighbour told you about a dog that went after a panther in the hills past the river. The settlers around there used to call them painters, their accent smoothing out the word until it sounded like a tradesman and not a predator. He said the dog chased it off, barking like a mad thing, and the big cat never came back. You didn't ask what happened to the dog. Here's a curious fact. In some parts of the old frontier, families would raise dogs with wolves. Purposefully. They'd find a wolf pup, raise it alongside their hound, and hope that the instincts would blend, domestic loyalty with wild ferocity. Most of the time it didn't work, but the few times it did, you got an animal that feared nothing and slept by your children's feet. Scholars go back and forth on whether that was wise or reckless. Some say those half-wolf dogs were too wild to be trusted. Others argue they were the perfect middle ground, the only thing fierce enough to face down the wild with you side by side. No one really agrees, and the truth's probably buried somewhere in a field none of them have walked. You look down at your hound, tail now thumping faintly. She's calming again. Her ears still twitch with every breeze, but the tension's draining out of her limbs. You reach down and rub her head gently. She huffs, presses against your palm. Not a word exchanged. But she knows. You do too. She'll wake again if it comes back. She always does. You lean against the wall, the logs cool and solid at your back. The musket rests against your knee now. Maybe you'll sleep sitting up. You've done it before. Outside, the lantern still burns. Its little beam painting stories on the trees. The wind's picking up. Not enough to howl, but enough to make the woods whisper things you'd rather not translate. Leaves shiver like pages turning. A branch creaks like an old man's voice. You close your eyes. Not fully, just a rest. A blink that stretches longer than usual. And when you finally drift off, it's not into sleep exactly. It's more like suspension. Half here, half in some space where your dog will wake you if the world goes sideways. A place where fear's just another heartbeat, where every breath is earned, and every night is won. The strange thing is, you don't remember falling asleep, but you always remember waking up, especially on nights like this, when it's not the sunrise or the chirping birds that stir you. It's the silence, a deep, unnatural kind of quiet. The kind that wakes you like a slap to the back of the neck, and when it does, you don't move at first. You lay still, heart thudding slow and heavy, and listen. The fire's gone out completely, just a cold stone hearth and the faint scent of ash. The dog is awake too, her ears flicking in the dark, her body frozen in the alert pose she slips into when she knows something is out of place. You follow by her gaze, your eyes trying to adjust to the faintest shapes in the blackened room, and then you hear it. Footsteps. Not the confident march of a man, not the scurry of an animal, but a slow, deliberate series of steps circling the cabin. One, pause, two more, another pause. The weight of each step suggests someone, or something, testing the ground, measuring the distance, calculating. You don't shout. That's not how you handle it out here. Instead, you ease your fingers around the musket, still where you left it, and check the pan by feel. Dry, thank God. You hold your breath and gesture to your wife, who's already pushing herself up with both hands, eyes wide in the dark. You don't have to say a word. The routine is built in now, etched into muscle memory and instinct. Your role is to watch the door. Hers is the kids. The loft ladder creaks as she climbs, careful but fast, whispering the children awake. You hear one of them whimper, just once, and she hushes them with soft murmurs. The dog doesn't growl this time. She's waiting, still as stone. More footsteps, this time behind the cabin. It's not a bear. You know how a bear moves. This is a man, or worse, men. You feel the difference. Bears crash through things, humans sneak. You move to the side window, raise the shutter just a sliver, and put your eye to the crack. Nothing, just trees and night, but the footsteps have stopped. And now it's worse, because the waiting has begun. Sleeping in shifts, that was the only way anyone survived more than a year out here. No one admitted it, but you all did it. One person stayed awake while the others rested, switching off in the middle of the night, nodding off against a cold wall or a pile of hay, gun across your lap, eyes bleary but open. Sleep was a luxury. Vigilance was survival. Tonight, you didn't shift. You slipped under. Wore yourself out during the day, told yourself the dog would alert you, and she did, but now you've missed something, and you hate that you missed something. Some families made schedules, actual written-out plans. Midnight to 3, father. 3 to dawn, eldest son. Others just did it by feel. Whoever had the strength, whoever drank the least that night, whoever seemed the least likely to doze off with a candle in their hand. Didn't matter how old you were. If you were over 10 and strong enough to aim a gun, you got a shift. The frontier didn't wait for childhood to end. It crushed it early, stomped it down under the boots and responsibility. Your son, he's 11 now, wants to take a turn soon. You keep telling him maybe next year, though you know there won't be a magic moment when it feels right. Just a point when you're too tired to say no again. You shift your weight and listen harder. Still nothing, no movement, no sound. That's when you know it's time to act. Because they're listening now too, waiting to hear you move, talk, panic, so you give them nothing. You take your time moving back from the window. You pick up the old horn lantern and start preparing it like any normal night, making just enough noise to suggest routine, like you haven't noticed anything amiss. You let the metal clink lightly and mumble something about needing firewood, words meant for the dog but broadcast into the dark. Then you grab the flint and steel, strike it once. The sparks leap into the lantern wick, and the sudden bloom of light is soft but enough. It floods the room in warm gold and throws your shadow against the log wall. You move deliberately now, clearly. If they're watching, you want them to think you're unbothered. Another old trick of the frontier. Don't let them know you're afraid. That applies to animals, that applies to men, that applies to everything. You head toward the hearth, lantern in one hand, musket in the other. The stone floor is cold on your soles, but your blood is too loud in your ears to notice. You crouch low and blow gently into the ashes, coaxing out a tiny flame from the few embers that still breathe under the powdery grey. It catches, hesitantly, like a child's first step. You add dry kindling. It smokes, then flares to life. The fire's warm again, visible. That's when you hear it, the unmistakable sound of someone walking away. The relief hits you like a wave, slow, warm, shaky. You don't let it show. You stoke the fire just a bit more and then close the shutter firmly. You don't care if the cabin gets smokier tonight. Let it get hazy. Let it hide your movements. Your wife comes down from the loft, her face pale in the lantern light. She mouths the words, "Gone?" You nod. She kneels and hugs the dog. She knows that's who saved you tonight. Not the rifle, not the fire, the dog. Every family that survived past their first winter had a good one. And they took better care of her than they did themselves. A quirky thing folks used to do. If a dog saved the family from danger, they'd cook it a whole rabbit, let it sleep on the bed, or carve a little charm and tie it around her neck. Some even braided their hair into the charm like they were weaving their spirits together. Superstition? Maybe, but you'd do it too. After nights like this, you start believing in all sorts of things. As for the scholarly debate, some historians argue that these nighttime prowlers were exaggerated, that settlers invented threats to justify their own unease or their violence towards strangers. But others insist that many cabins were stalked by opportunists, outlaws, drifters, or deserters from one war or another, desperate and armed. The academic papers split down the middle, but out here you don't gamble on theories. You prepare like the threat is real, because too many times it is. Now finally, you sit down again. Not because you're tired, but because your legs might not hold you much longer. You lean back against the cold wall, the dog's head on your foot, the musket in your lap, and your family breathing safely around you. Another night survived. You'd think building a cabin would be simple. Stack logs, seal the gaps, slap a roof on top, and you're good. But you learn fast out here that every detail matters, and that some details are the difference between waking up in the morning and not waking up at all. When you built this place, it wasn't just about keeping the rain out, it was about keeping everything else out too. Cold, wind, animals, people. That meant thinking like a predator while building a shelter meant to repel them. You didn't grow up a carpenter, but you've had to fake it. Out here, survival turns everyone into a builder, and when it came time to pick the cabin's location, you thought carefully. Not in a dip, too easy to flood. Not too close to the river, danger of being watched, but not too far either, because you'll need water every day. You settled for a gentle rise surrounded by hardwood trees, where the thickets thin out just enough for visibility, but not so much you feel exposed. A lot of settlers built with security in mind, even if they didn't say so out loud. Cabins weren't usually tall. Low roofs meant fewer blind spots. Windows were small, just wide enough to shoot through. Shutters opened inwards so you could keep them closed and still peek out. No glass, of course, just wooden planks, sometimes with holes drilled for watching. Your door swings inward too, that's not a mistake. It means if something's trying to break in, you can brace it from the inside, shoulder against the beam. One frontier trick you picked up from an older neighbour involved a second exit, a hidden trapdoor under a rug, leading to a shallow crawl space or even a back tunnel dug into the slope. Most people didn't have the time or energy for something like that, but a few did, especially families who'd seen trouble before. Yours? You're working on it. Slowly. Right now, it's more a fantasy than an escape route, but the idea's there, and sometimes that's enough to help you fall asleep. You built your walls double thick. Not everyone does that. Some folks throw up a single line of logs and call it good. You opted for an outer layer and an inner layer with a narrow gap filled with mud and straw. It helps with insulation, yes, but it also dulls sound. Screams don't travel as far, and incoming bullets or arrows, less likely to punch all the way through. It's the frontier version of armour. The roof took the most planning. It's slanted just steep enough to shed rain and snow, but not so sharp it can't be climbed in a hurry. You've stashed an extra musket up in the rafters, just in case. There's a flat beam near the peak you can lie on. Again, just in case. Call it paranoia, or call it preparation. Out here, they're the same thing. There's a layer of loose stones piled under the front window. They're not decorative, they're ammunition. If someone tries to climb through, they'll find themselves pelted with rocks before they ever meet the barrel of your gun. You've even got thin wooden slats over some of the interior logs, painted to match the walls. Slide one aside and there's your hidden cubby. Powder, lead balls, extra flint, jerky, bandages. Frontier families turned their homes into quiet fortresses, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And then there are the little touches. A bell on a string, rigged to the door, a line of powdered lime across the entryway that'll show footprints if someone comes in while you sleep. The floorboards near the window. One creaks louder than the others. That's on purpose. It's a noise alarm for when someone steps where they shouldn't. You sometimes even scatter dried beans across the porch, step on them, and they crack loud enough to wake the dog. It sounds ridiculous until it works. That's the thing about frontier architecture. It's not just carpentry, it's strategy. Every beam, every board, every stone has a reason, and most of those reasons have teeth. Of course, not everyone agrees on the best design. Some scholars claim frontier cabins were built as fast as possible, with minimal concern for defence. Survival first, safety second, they say. But then there are journals from settlers who described planning their homes like they were preparing for siege. The truth likely depends on the region, the era, and the paranoia level of whoever was swinging the axe. But the evidence is out there, in the door bars, the shutter latches, the hidden compartments. People knew danger wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. You stand now, stretching sore legs and rotating your shoulders. The fire has warmed the room again. The kids are back to sleep in the loft, the dog snoring lightly at your feet. You look around at the cabin, really look at it. The low beams, dark with smoke. The walls lined with tools, hides, dried herbs and weapons. The shelf where you keep the Bible and the worn deck of playing cards. Every item speaks of dual purpose, function and defence, comfort and readiness. You crouch and run your hand along the baseboard, where you once carved a small mark for every night you made it through the winter. You stopped after the first year, not because it got easier, but because you knew you'd have to keep going no matter what. You built this place with your own hands, but you've never truly felt like it was yours. Not in the way city people think about homes. It belongs to the forest, to the wind and the sky and the silence between gunshots. You're just the one borrowing it, guarding it, making sure it holds long enough for morning. And that morning, still hours away, sits somewhere out there behind the trees, waiting its turn. The house creaks again, not from footsteps this time, but from edu, cold, memory. You return to your seat near the hearth and pick up the whetstone. Your blade needs sharpening. Might as well keep busy, there's always another night coming, and you want your tools to be ready when it does. Because out here, the cabin doesn't protect you. You protect the cabin. You're never more than an arm's reach from your musket. That's not some exaggerated frontier flex, it's just survival. At night, it rests beside your sleeping spot, the barrel tilted upward like it's keeping watch with you. During the day, it hangs on 2 iron hooks by the door or leans against the chopping block while you work. You don't think of it as a weapon so much as a tool like a shovel or a hatchet, except this one can decide if your family gets to see tomorrow. Tonight, it's back on your lap, heavy and familiar. You run your hand down the smooth walnut stock, noting every nick and oil stain. It's been with you since the beginning. Not your first gun, but the one that's not stayed. 1 shot, then maybe 20 seconds to reload. Assuming you're calm, your powder's dry, and your hands aren't shaking like leaves. That's a big assumption, especially when something's trying to claw its way through your shutters. You check the flint again, pinch tight in the jaws of the cock, good edge, not worn yet. Powder in the pan looks dry. You close the frizzen with a soft click, the sound weirdly loud in the hush of the cabin. Your wife glances over from where she's kneading a bit of bread dough, her hands moving by the muscle memory. You nod, just once. She returns to her task. That's your language now, nods, glances, shared breath. Talking after dark is for fools. A loaded musket is both comfort and curse. You've heard the stories of panicked settlers firing too early, wasting a shot on shadows, then being caught with a useless stick in their hands. It's happened. Probably always will. The trick is patience. You don't fire unless you can see the whites of eyes, unless you know what you're aiming at, because out here a wasted shot could mean a broken door and a bad ending. You lean back against the wall and let your eyes flick to the second rifle tucked up in the rafters. That's your fallback. If you miss the first shot or don't get time to reload, you've got one more chance, assuming you can climb like a squirrel under pressure. It's not ideal. But then again, nothing about frontier defense is ideal. It's all compromises and maybes. There's an old frontier saying 2 shots is mercy, 1 shot is hope, no shots, that's the end. It's grim but accurate. You're not the only one with night guns either. Most cabins kept at least 1 musket or long rifle by the hearth, even if the family couldn't afford much else. They'd share it among all who could shoot. Wife, sons, daughters, even old grandparents who'd long since stopped farming but still knew how to aim. Ammunition was rationed, measured like sugar or salt. Some made their own lid balls by melting down scrap, pouring the molten metal into iron moulds, trimming the edges with knives worn thinner than bark. There's an unspoken rule out here: never fire your musket unless you mean it. Not just because of the reload time, but because of the noise a musket blast carries. In these woods, it echoes off the trees, sails down the hollows, bounces off the hills, and someone, something will hear it. That might be a neighbour, might be something less neighbourly. You run a cloth down the barrel, slow and steady. You keep the metal oiled even in the dry seasons. A rusty gun is a quiet coffin. You've seen a man try to fire with a blocked barrel. The explosion blew out the side, shattered the stock, took 3 fingers off. He lived, sure, but his shooting days were done, and on the frontier, that's just a slower death. You pause to rewrap the powder horn, then tuck it into the crook beside the hearth. Every tool has its place. You do that on purpose. When panic hits, you don't want to be hunting through shadows for your shot pouch or flint. You want your hands to know where to go before your brain catches up. The dog lifts her head suddenly. A single bark, short and clipped. Then silence. You freeze. Everyone does. Second stretch. Then a long, low growl, not warning this time. Threat. She stands, fur along her spine rising like static. Your wife stops kneading and grabs the smaller pistol from the mantel. It's not much, barely good for 10 feet, but it's better than fists. You raise your musket and step toward the window, towing aside the log you keep there for bracing. A flicker of movement in the lantern light outside, not close, maybe 15 yards out. Could be nothing, but you don't believe in nothing after dark anymore. You aim through the slats, slow and measured. Finger near the trigger, but not on it, breathing slow. Then, movement again, new shapes low to the ground. One crosses toward the edge of the trees and vanishes. The other turns and bolts in the opposite direction. Deer, you tell yourself, probably deer. The dog barks once more, deep and sharp, then drops to a crouch. You wait another minute, then 2, then lower the musket and step back. The tension breaks like a rope snapping in your chest. This is the part no one writes about in the books, the almost. The time you almost fired, the threat that almost came in. These moments eat at you more than the real attacks, because your brain tries to fill in the blanks afterward, drawing monsters in the spaces where shadows were. Here's a strange little fact. Some families kept loaded muskets tucked into hay bales around their cabins. Hidden weapons. They called them insurance sticks. If the main gun failed or was lost in a struggle, you reached behind the bale, pulled out your surprise and levelled the odds. It's not written in fancy journals, but it's whispered in letters tucked into personal logs. A quirk of frontier life born from too many close calls. Of course, scholars will argue this kind of thing. Some insist these hidden guns were rare, exaggerated by storytellers. Others claim they were essential. A few accounts even describe decoy rifles, hollowed out stocks meant to look real but meant to buy time, while someone reached for the actual weapon. No consensus, just stories. But stories have their own kind of truth. You step back to your stool, set the musket across your lap again. The dog settles too, still staring at the door, but breathing easier now. Your wife returns to the dough, though her hands are stiffer now, kneading more like punching. In the loft, one of the kids turns over and mutters in his sleep. He says something about a fox, then drifts off again. You hope that's all it was, but hope out here is a nervous little candle, always flickering, always one breath from going out, so you stay alert. You keep the musket ready. Not because you want to use it, but because you know, eventually, you'll have to. The sun doesn't rise out here, it creeps. First a greyness filters through the shutters, soft and slow like the world deciding whether or not to come back to life. Then come the birds. One call, then another. Then a full-blown chorus of flapping wings and territorial shrieking, as if the trees are all arguing about who made it through the night. You're still awake, of course. You never really went to sleep. Just drifted in and out. Head bobbing, fingers curled around the musket like a man sleeping with a loaded question. Your wife gets up first. She always does. You don't know how. She moves quiet, barely stirring the air as she stokes the fire, sets the kettle on the coals and wipes down the dough board from last night. Her hair's a mess and her eyes are red, but she moves like someone who's accepted that rest is a memory. You follow a minute later, stretching until your bones pop, and give the dog a pat. She's already sniffing the corners, doing her own morning sweep. The night passed without further trouble. That doesn't mean it's over. It just means you bought another day. You unlatch the door and push it open slowly, blinking into the silver-blue haze of morning. The lantern out front is still there, burned out now, a faint wisp of smoke rising from the last of the wick. The clearing looks the same as always, trees standing where they stood yesterday, shadows hiding what they always hide. But you know better. The woods are never really still. They just pretend well. You scan the area, no footprints, no signs of digging, no bones or claw marks on the doorframe. Whatever came near last night either left no trace or never stepped close enough to leave one. You'll still walk the perimeter. You always do. Just a quick loop around the cabin, musket slung over your shoulder, eyes down for broken twigs or fresh tracks. It's not paranoia, it's practice. And here's the part that might surprise you. You're not alone out here, not completely. There are other cabins scattered like teeth across the hills and woods, each one hiding its own story. Your closest neighbour is a half-mile west. An older couple, no children, just a shotgun between them and the woods. Then there's the family to the south, down by the creek. They've got 7 kids, 3 dogs, and a bell rigged to a tripwire across their front yard. It jingles like Christmas every time a rabbit passes through. But they swear it saved their lives once when two strangers came sniffing around after dark. The unwritten rule out here is simple. Be friendly with your neighbours. You might hate their politics or their cooking or their off-key singing. But if something goes wrong, really wrong, they're the only people within screaming distance who might come help. Or avenge you if it comes to that. That's why you check in. Not daily, that's too risky and too far. But you make a point every week or so to walk over with a sack of cornmeal or a bundle of kindling and share a few words. Not much talk, just a glance, a nod, a quick exchange of news. Saw a cougar track up near the ridge. That trader hasn't come back yet. Something sniffing around last night. Wasn't a coyote? You don't ask too many questions. Everyone's got secrets out here. You just need to know that if you send up smoke or fire a double shot in the dead of night, someone might notice. And, if you're lucky, someone might come. Some communities go further. They create rotation schedules, shared watches. Families take turns staying awake at night, watching not just their own cabins, but the trail that leads into the valley. One family might stay up until midnight, another from midnight to dawn. It's risky, though. If one family fails to wake, or worse, if something gets to them first, the whole chain collapses. You haven't joined one of those yet. You're not sure you trust anyone that much. Or maybe you just don't want to be responsible for someone else's kids. Still, there's a weird comfort in knowing you're not entirely alone. Even if the trees hide your neighbours, even if the wind carries your shouts too far in the wrong direction, someone out there is doing the same thing, listening for steps, checking windows, counting shadows. There's a story that still floats through the valley, about a winter raid long before you got here. 5 cabins hit in one night. No warning, no survivors. Some say it was bandits, others swear it was militia deserters, or maybe just starving men turned feral. But the part people always repeat is that the last cabin didn't go down without a fight. The father, old as dirt, fired 3 shots into the night, then ran half a mile through snow barefoot to warn the next farm over. He died before morning, but the next farm survived. Whether or not that story's true doesn't matter. It's believed, and that's enough. It's why some families agree on signals, lanterns hung in trees, bundles of dry grass burned just before dawn, 3 quick shots fired into the air, warnings that mean come now or don't come at all. You've got your own system with the neighbour to the west. If something goes wrong, you agreed to hang a red cloth on the fence post. If he sees it, he knows to come armed. You've only used it once, and not for danger, but because your youngest split his head on a rock and you needed help stopping the bleeding. Your neighbour came running with a bottle of whiskey and a sewing needle, didn't ask questions, just got to work. That's the kind of loyalty you can't buy in town. Of course, there's always the danger of trusting the wrong person. Some of the worst attacks didn't come from strangers in the woods. They came from neighbours who snapped. A man loses a child, loses his farm, starts drinking, starts thinking bad thoughts, and the next thing you know, he's trying to trade buckshot for someone else's corn. You don't like thinking about that, but you do, every day. That's why your hand always twitches toward your belt when someone unexpected approaches. That's why you listen for the tone in people's voices, not just the words. That's why you keep your shotgun within arm's reach when you sit out front carving whistles for the kids. Not because you expect trouble, because trouble never gives you advance notice. So when you walk back inside after your morning perimeter, you give your wife the same answer as always. Quiet night. And she nods, the way she always does. She's already prepping breakfast, slab of cornbread, a few eggs from the coop, black coffee thick enough to float a nail. You take your cup outside and sit on the log step, steam rising into the cool air. The forest is waking up now, louder and more alive than it was all night. The world has returned, but you know better. Danger doesn't sleep with the sun. It just gets harder to see. You spend most of the day doing what needs doing, splitting wood, checking the snare lines, patching the place where the roof leaks when it rains sideways. Your hands are always busy, but your mind stays half in last night. You keep going back to the way the dog tensed up, the shape near the lantern, the long pause of silence before the thing, whatever it was, slipped back into the woods. You try to shake it off, focus on the rhythm of the axe, the familiar thunk of blade into log, but it's like trying to forget a dream where you almost died. It stays. After lunch, salt pork and ash cakes. You take a slow walk around the edge of the clearing, trailing your fingers along the tree trunks, studying the dirt. You're not a master tracker, but you know what deer hooves look like, and what raccoon paws look like, and what human boots look like. You don't see much today. No prints, no broken branches, just the usual messes of leaves and damp earth. But your gut says something was here. Your gut hasn't been wrong in a long time, so you decide it's time to revisit the old tricks, the ones that don't rely on your eyes or ears, the ones that announce themselves. First, you string a line between two trees along the path to the north, right where the brush opens up like a welcome mat. You tie the string low, about knee height, and dangle 3 rusted tin cans from it. They'll rattle if something trips them, and you'll know which direction to look. Then you take some of the leftover soap slivers, dry and brittle, and rub them across the porch boards, especially in front of the door. If anyone steps there overnight, you'll see the smear marks by morning. You scatter a handful of dried corn kernels by the back window too. They crunch like brittle bones underfoot, and no one, man or animal, can cross them silently. And then, because you're a little tired of being careful, you try something from the less practical side of the playbook. You carve a figure, just a small one, from pine. Not on a person, not really, just a shape with wide eyes and outstretched hands. You place it on a rock by the tree line, facing outward. It's not for decoration. It's a warning. A subtle one, sure, but people notice things like that. They wonder if maybe you're a little strange, a little dangerous. That's good. On the frontier, you want people to wonder what you're capable of. You want them unsure. That's the spirit behind the makeshift booby traps so many families out here swear by. You've heard stories of folks rigging bells to their shutters, glass bottles on strings, even barbed fishing hooks woven into low-hanging branches near the door. Anything to create hesitation. Anything to buy time, because when something bad happens at night, you don't get a warning bell. You get 5 seconds of noise and a lifetime to regret not being ready. You remember your neighbour across the ridge? He had a setup with tripwires stretched through his cabbage patch. Not to catch thieves, but to slow them. The wires were thin and tied to bent saplings that would spring up and knock over stacks of brush, making a racket like a cart rolling downstairs. It sounded ridiculous when he explained it. But the one time someone did try to sneak through, they triggered the whole thing, and he had his musket trained on them before they even hit the ground. Turned out to be a kid from downriver, lost and scared, but still. The trap worked. Scholars roll their eyes at this kind of thing. In their neat brick-walled libraries, they like to say settlers weren't as paranoid as the stories suggest, that most of the so-called booby traps were just folklore, inflated by time and fear. Maybe they're right. Or maybe they've just never had to live in a house where every knock on the wall might be a claw or a knuckle. Because here's the truth. When you're a day's ride from the nearest town, when there's no law but the one you enforce yourself, you start getting creative. You look around at what you have and ask yourself, what can I turn into a warning? And more often than not, the answer is almost anything. Even now, inside the cabin, you keep your eyes open for spots that could help you in a pinch. That cracked board near the hearth? Pull it up and there's your hidey hole. The ladder to the loft can be pulled up with a rope and tied, turning it into a last resort barricade. The heavy stew pot by the fire. Hot or not, it makes a brutal weapon when swung with enough desperation. You've even stashed a few jagged nails and broken glass bits under the front porch, half buried in the dirt. Just enough to catch the foot of someone sneaking around barefoot, or running low on boots. It's ugly, you know. But this is an ugly place sometimes. No one writes ballads about bear traps and rusty blades, but you sleep better knowing they're there. Your wife doesn't love this part of you. She gets it, but she doesn't love it. The traps, the strings, the jars of oil near the windows, those worry her. Not because they're dangerous, but because they mean something else's, something worse. Still, she helps, quietly. She ties the bells, she rearranges the furniture to make room for the tripwires. She tucks the knife under the mattress when she tucks the children in. She never says the word paranoid, she just says, do what you think's right, and leaves it there. Tonight, you sit by the fire with the dog at your feet and the cabin quieter than it's been all day. You've double-checked the door, the shutters, the string lines. You've banked the fire low and kept the light dim. You're tired, bone-tired. But your mind is running a quiet inventory of every booby trap you've set. Every trick, every delay tactic. Will they work? You hope so, but hope out here is more superstition than strategy. You always think light brings comfort. But out here, light is a question you have to answer carefully. Too much and you become a beacon. Too little and you might miss something creeping inches from your doorstep. Tonight, you're walking that line again, deciding whether the glow from the fire should stay as it is, or if you ought to snuff it out altogether. You settle for letting it burn just enough to cast weak shadows across the room, just enough to remind anyone peeking through the shutters that someone's still awake inside. You sit by the hearth with your knees drawn up, mug in hand, sipping lukewarm coffee gone bitter from too much time on the coals. Your eyes flick to the lantern hanging by the door. Very. You haven't lit it yet. Won't unless you have to. Instead, you rely on the embers and that soft orange wash they throw across the floorboards. It's safer this way. Lantern light is bold, reckless even. A full lantern says we're confident. And most of the time you aren't. Most families you've talked to on the frontier have the same strategy. Use light like seasoning, sparingly, just enough to flavour the room, not so much that it gives everything away. A single candle, maybe a banked fire like yours. Some even keep rooms in total darkness on purpose, using shadows as allies instead of enemies, especially if they suspect someone's watching from the trees. Because if you can't see the inside of a place, you don't know who's in there, or how many. You've done it yourself. During storms, when the thunder masks footsteps, when you know someone desperate might be moving between cabins looking for an easy mark, you let the place go pitch black. You sit behind the shutter with the musket, eyes fixed on the faintest outline of the front door, while your wife rests behind you with the pistol in hand and the kids clutching each other upstairs, quiet as mice. Some nights you hang a lantern outside instead of keeping one lit inside. That's another trick. Set it just far enough from the cabin to draw the eye. So if someone's watching, they fixate on the wrong spot. You once placed an old coat and hat on a stump beside it, just to suggest someone was sitting out there enjoying the evening. It was a cold, moonless night, and you stayed inside the whole time, watching from the loft through a knothole in the wall, waiting to see if anyone took the bait. They didn't, or if they did, they never stepped close enough to trigger your traps. Still, you went out the next morning and found the lantern knocked over and the hat missing. You never found it. You try not to think about who took it, or why they didn't come closer. There's an argument to be made that darkness is the better choice. Many of the old-timers you talk to, and by talk to, you mean drink with and listen to as they ramble, swear by it. They'll say, keep your place black as coal and your powder dry. If they can't see you, they can't hit you. But others argue for the opposite. A lit cabin, a loud voice, a show of force. They say that scares off more trouble than it attracts. That's one of those old frontier debates no one can agree on. There are stories that support both. Some families survived raids because their home was dark and quiet and passed over. Others fought off attackers with blazing lights and musket fire from the windows. No one really knows which is better. It's all a gamble. And the stakes? Well, you already know. You lean over now and pinch the wick of the candle that's been sitting unlit on the mantel. You were thinking about lighting it earlier. You don't. You let your eyes adjust instead. You know this cabin by heart. You could walk it blindfolded. Your foot avoids the loose board near the front door. Your fingers brush the musket's stock without looking. Every creak, every shift in the walls, you already know what it should sound like, which means when something doesn't sound right, you'll hear it. Your wife has finished putting the children to bed. She comes down the ladder slowly, every step practiced to avoid the one that squeaks. She hands you a folded cloth, one of your old shirts, patched and repurposed as a cleaning rag, and sits beside you without speaking. You both stare at the fire. It doesn't dance, it murmurs. I heard something earlier, she says quietly. You nod. You always do. She keeps her voice soft. Just before you came in from the snares, sounded like whispering. Your hand tightens a little around the mug, but you don't look at her yet. In the woods, she nods. How close? She shrugs. Not far. That's worse than close. Close is loud, close is trackable. Not far is somewhere between your imagination and a real slow-moving threat. You don't ask what she thinks it was. You both know that some things don't have names, and even if they did, naming them doesn't help. It just makes them feel more real. You stare into the fire until your eyes blur, then you glance around the room. You've dimmed the place to just this one glow. It's not much, but it's enough to keep you sane. Just enough to remind you that you are in control of this space, even if only barely. It's your light, your vigil, your rules. Out in the trees, the owls have gone quiet. Not a good sign. The wind stirs a dry leaf across the porch, soft, then gone. The dog lets out a low grumble, her eyes open but unfocused. You glance at the shutter, still closed tight, but you feel it, a presence. And here's something odd. Some settlers believed that light could trap spirits, that if you kept a fire burning, certain things wouldn't enter, or couldn't, not for fear of being seen, but because the light held them. Like insects caught in amber. You're not sure you buy it, but on nights like this you wonder. Maybe it's not about seeing, maybe it's about claiming space, drawing a line. This fire? this light. It means this place is ours, and if anything wants to cross that line, they'll have to deal with what's waiting in the dark behind the glow. You poke the embers with a stick. Watch the sparks drift up like fireflies. You don't stoke it. You don't let it die. You keep it balanced, just like everything else out here. Just enough to see, not enough to be seen. In the woods, something crunches. You both freeze. The fire pops. Then nothing. Just silence. You blow gently on the coals, then lower the lantern beside your feet. Unlit. Waiting. Let the dark come. You're ready either way. It starts with a sound you almost miss. Just the tiniest creak. Not a tree swaying or a branch falling, but something far more specific. Like a foot on old wood. You're not even sure it happened at first. Could have been your imagination filling in blanks where only wind belongs. But then it happens again, a second creak, followed by silence so loud it presses on your ears. You stop breathing. The dog is already up, her ears forward, eyes on the door. She growls once, a low rumble in her throat like distant thunder rolling uphill. You don't say anything. You just move, quiet and practiced, across the floor. One step at a time, you put yourself between the door and the fire, the musket already in your hands, cocked and angled just slightly up. You angle your body so your shadow doesn't show through the slats in the shutter. The dog moves with you, close to your leg. She doesn't bark. She's done this before. Your wife has gone completely still. She's behind the ladder now, holding the pistol with both hands. Not pointed at the door yet, just resting in her lap. She watches you. You watch the window. The fire crackles behind you, too loud all of a sudden, like it's betraying your position with every pop. Then there's a scuffle. Not footsteps this time, but the unmistakable sound of something brushing against the side of the cabin. Your heart lurches. You've heard raccoons do that, rubbing up against the logs, sniffing for grease or crumbs. But this is heavier, slower, a broad movement that makes the wooden wall creak ever so slightly. You glance at the dog, still staring, still growling. That's all the confirmation you need. Your voice, when it comes, is low and hard. If someone's out there, speak now. Nothing. Step away from this cabin or I'll fire. Still nothing. You move to the side of the window and flick open the shutter, just an inch, just enough to aim through. Your breath clouds against the cold glassless air and your eye scans the clearing. The lantern you left out there is still cold, lifeless. The moon is weak tonight, hiding behind a scrim of thin clouds, and it's all just shapes and outlines and suggestions. Then you hear it. Breathing, not your own, not the dog's. A deep, wet inhale, close, on the other side of the wall. The kind of breath that doesn't care if you hear it. The kind that wants you to. You grip the musket tighter, finger on the trigger. Your voice is louder now. This is your last warning. Silence. Then movement. Fast. Whatever it is bolts away from the cabin, rustling through underbrush, knocking over a bucket you left out by the chopping block. It crashes into something hard, maybe a rock or a stump, then keeps going. The dog barks once, a short angry noise, but doesn't give chase. You don't either. You wait. A full minute. Then 5. You listen for the woods to settle, for the branches to stop trembling. Your wife finally exhales. You think it was a man? You shake your head. Didn't sound like it. Animal? Maybe. But you both know that didn't sound like any animal you've run into. Not a bear, not a coyote, and definitely not something that breathes like it's been crawling through your worst nightmares. Here's the thing about the frontier at night. There are sounds you expect, and sounds that exist in a category all their own. The first group includes owls, wolves, wind through leaves, maybe the occasional branch snapping. You catalogue those early, you learn to ignore them. The second group, though, that's harder to explain. They don't show up in books or journals. They don't have names. They're things that make sounds that almost belong to something you know, but not quite. Sounds that make your spine ache because your brain's trying to fit them into categories that don't exist. You've heard a few, and the more you talk to old settlers, the more you realise you're not alone. There's a woman you met 3 winters ago, deep in the woods near the plateau. She said she used to hear crying outside her cabin. Not human, not exactly, just enough to sound familiar. Every night for a week. The 8th night, her dog disappeared. She moved out a month later, said she didn't even take half her things. Left it all for whatever wanted it more than me, she told you. She wouldn't even say the name of the place. Some folks say these sounds are just animals. Foxes, bobcats, maybe panthers making noises that sound like people. And sure, maybe that's part of it. A fox's scream can mimic a woman's cry frighteningly well. That's a fact. But you've heard things out here that don't line up with foxes or felines or common sense, like the time you heard whistling. One single note repeated 3 times, just outside your door. Not a tune, not playful, just deliberate. 3 notes, then silence. You opened the door with your gun drawn, expecting a prank, a trap, anything, nothing, no tracks, no footprints, no breeze, just trees and dark. You didn't sleep that night. Scholars tend to gloss over this stuff. When they write about frontier life, it's all harvests and homesteads, barns and politics. They leave out the nights when your fire is the only thing keeping you from unravelling. The sounds you swear are too strange to be natural, but too present to be imagined. There's an old saying, whispered among certain backwoods families, some things come around to test the lock just to see if you're still watching. You don't know where it came from, but you believe it now. You finally close the shutter, latch it again. The fire's burned low, but you don't feed it yet. You just sit there for a long time, watching the red coals dim. The dog paces twice, then lies down again, still twitchy. Your wife hasn't let go of the pistol, and you listen, because something out there knows where your cabin is now, and next time it might not walk away. By morning it's as if nothing happened. The trees stand quiet again, pretending they've always been harmless. The birds flutter and chirp like nothing strange ever brushed the walls of your cabin. Even the dog seems a little more relaxed, stretching out by the hearth, paws twitching in her sleep as if last night were already buried somewhere deep in her mind. But you know better. You always know better. You open the front door slowly, muskets slung over one shoulder, and step out into the crisp air. Mist hangs low, clinging to the ground like a secret not ready to rise. The clearing glows with a damp silver sheen, and somewhere off in the trees, a branch snaps. Just one, then silence. The fire pit from the night before still holds the charred remains of your decoy lantern, now cold and crumbling. You crouch down beside it, sifting through the ashes. You're not sure what you're looking for, but people do this. Touch the last trace of the fire, as if it might whisper what happened while you slept. You circle the cabin again, this time slower, more deliberate. You examine every footprint you find, and some that look like maybe they almost were footprints. Indentations, broken twigs, impressions in the moss. One mark under the back window draws your attention. It looks like a drag, as if someone pulled something heavy away from the wall, then disappeared into the brush. But there's no blood, no fur, no sign of a struggle, nothing definitive. You don't call your wife out to look, not yet. Let her get through the morning thinking the danger is gone. After chores and a long silence, she finally asks, "Did you see it?" You pause over your coffee. "No." "You sure it wasn't just an animal?" You want to say yes, you almost do, but then you remember the sound of that breathing, deep, wet. Too measured to be an animal, but not right for a man either. So you just say, "I'm not sure it wasn't." She nods like that's an answer she already knew was coming. Here's the thing about living out here. You don't get many certainties. You learn to navigate maybes and lean hard into instincts. And those instincts tell you something passed through last night that didn't belong to any natural category. You don't have a name for it. Maybe no one does. But it wasn't normal. It reminds you of something one of the older settlers once told you, back when you were new to this land, still green, still believing every sound had a logical explanation. He said, "The ones that whisper, those are the worst. They don't scream, they don't howl, they just let you know they're nearby." You thought he was a lunatic. Maybe he is. But he also hasn't left his cabin in over 6 years. Not once, even in daylight. That man had stories. Said he once heard a scream so iron thin it made his nose bleed. Another time, something stood just outside his window all night, whistling softly, over and over again, never stopping. Wasn't no tune, he said. Wasn't even musical, just repetition, like it was trying to teach itself how people do it. You never knew what to make of his stories, but lately they've started sounding less like fantasy and more like weather reports. Maybe exaggerated, maybe not. And there are the animals too. You've noticed that when those kinds of nights happen, nights like last night, the animals act strange for days afterward. Snares are empty, the hens go quiet. Even the flies stay away from the cabin. It's like the whole woods goes into hiding, waiting for the world to feel normal again. You think about the panther cries you've heard before? The ones people swear sound like women screaming in the dark. You've heard it once yourself. Chilled your blood straight to the marrow. But what you heard last night wasn't that. There was no panic in it. No animal fear. It was intentional. It was studying. And that's the part that bothers you most. Because when something watches you that long without acting, it's either scared or planning. By mid-morning, you decide to stay close to the cabin for the day. No long walk to the river, no extended foraging. Just enough firewood chopped to keep the fire alive through the night. And a quick visit to the garden to pull a few struggling turnips. The dog stays close too, never more than 20 feet away. Ears always half-cocked like she's hearing something you can't. Around noon, a crow lands in the clearing, cawing once before fluttering to the ground and pecking at nothing. Just pacing back and forth in the grass like it forgot why it came. You've heard that some cultures believe crows are messengers, others say they're omens, and some old folks around here believe that when a crow acts like it doesn't know what it's doing, it means something else has entered the forest, something even the birds don't recognise. You toss a stone near it and it flies off, silent. You return inside and shut the door a little harder than usual. Your wife looks up but doesn't ask. She's been boiling water to wash clothes, but her eyes are distant, like they're still stuck in last night too. You light the lantern early tonight, even though there's still light outside. Not for warmth or for visibility, for control. The yellow glow pushes back the grey creeping in through the windows. It gives you something to focus on, something to hang your nerves on. There's a common belief among frontier folk that if you don't acknowledge fear, it can't harm you. That you only become a target when you name the thing that scares you. But you've started to question that. You think fear, like fire, doesn't care if you speak its name. It's still bird just the same. And that's the strange part. Everyone out here has their version of the thing. The whisperer, the mimic, the walker, the pale man. Some say they're spirits. Others say they're people who never came back from the edge of the woods, minds shattered, bones hollowed. Some think they're just tales told to scare children. But you know better. These stories exist because something does, and last night it breathed on your wall. The sun sinks lower. You light a second candle and put it near the back window. The dog watches the door again, same as always. Your wife sets the pistol on the table beside her knitting. Neither of you says anything. Night is coming. You don't know what it will bring, but you've swept the porch, you've checked your strings, you've banked the fire, stashed the powder, sharpened the blades, and now you wait again, listening for something you hope you never hear a second time. You sit with your back to the wall, knees up, musket resting across them. Not in your hands now, just close enough that if something hits the door, you can bring it up in one motion. The fire's low again. You keep it that way on purpose. The shadows are deeper like this, heavier in the corners, but you've learned to live with them. And sometimes it's better to see less. Sometimes knowing too much just makes it worse. Your wife is dozing with the pistol in her lap. She's upright in the rocking chair, head dipped forward, hands still tangled in the yarn she gave up pretending to knit 2 hours ago. The kids are upstairs in the loft, dead quiet. You're not sure they're asleep. You wouldn't be. But they're not talking, and that's enough. Outside, the wind's been picking up. It howls in a strange, steady way. No rise or fall, just one long breath across the trees, like the whole forest is exhaling at once. You glance at the shutters, still closed tight. No candlelight leaking through. That's good. You've checked every latch twice already, but you'll check them again before morning, then you hear it. Movement, not close, not like last time, but unmistakable. Something out in the woods. You tilt your head to listen better, and it's clearer now. 2 distinct steps, then a pause. 2 more, then silence, then again, and it's not just the pattern. It's the timing. You've hunted long enough to know how animals walk. They're not thoughtful about it. They don't pace, but this thing is moving like it's thinking, like it's deciding. You resist the urge to move too suddenly. You don't want to make more noise. Instead, you lower the musket gently across your lap and ease to your feet, one slow motion at a time. The dog lifts her head but doesn't growl yet. Her ears flick once, then forward. She's locked in too. You move to the west shutter and ease it open a crack, same as always. Just a sliver. The trees are still, too still. That wind? Gone. Just cut off like someone flipped a switch. And then, off to the left, movement. Not fast, just a single figure stepping between the trees. Tall, upright, too far to make out details, but not so far you can pretend it's an animal. You can't see a face, but you can feel eyes. It doesn't approach, just stands. Still. You don't shout this time, you don't threaten. It wouldn't help. You simply wait. letting the cold crawl up your arms, letting your breath slow until you barely make a sound. But it doesn't move, doesn't speak, it just waits too, like it's giving you time to notice it, maybe time to be afraid. Your wife opens her eyes slowly. You don't say anything, you just hold up 2 fingers and point toward the woods. She doesn't look, just nods and reaches for the pistol. Then finally the figure turns and walks back into the trees. No rush, just leaves. And that's what makes your skin crawl. Not that it was there, but that it wanted you to know it was, that it could have come closer and chose not to, like it was testing something, and it decided not yet. You step back from the window and close the shutter again, careful to latch it silently. The dog has moved to the front door now, sitting, staring, ears up, still no sound. She's the kind of dog that doesn't bark unless it matters, and now she's dead still. You sit back down, slowly, carefully, and that's when your brain does the thing it always does on nights like this. It goes looking. It digs up old stories, scraps of warning, buried under everything you thought was nonsense. And tonight, it lands on something you heard in passing from a trader out of Ohio. He was half drunk and missing 3 fingers from some accident he wouldn't explain. But he told you this story like it was gospel. He said some tribes tell of forest beings that don't strike on the first visit. They come once to be seen, a second time and to be remembered, and a third time, well, no one talks about the third time. Said they're not spirits, not quite, not flesh either, something older. Something that watches the edge of civilization and waits for the line to thin. You didn't believe him then, you might not believe him now, but the story fits, and that's the part that makes your chest tighten. You glance over at your wife. Her hands are gripping the arms of the chair now, white-knuckled. She didn't see what you saw, but she knows. She always knows. You think it'll come back? She asks. Eventually, you say. No one says anything else for a long while. And here's the part that gets you. What you saw tonight. It didn't act like something afraid of your traps, or your guns, or your light. It didn't flinch. It didn't test the door or the shutter. It just watched. Like it was waiting for something. Maybe a mistake. Maybe an invitation. That's the trouble with living on the edge of the unknown. It's not just about what's in the woods, it's about what isn't in the books, because for all the research, for all the history and journals and archaeology, there's still a massive blind spot when it comes to what lived alongside those settlers. What walked the same paths, what looked through the same windows. There are no footnotes for things that breathe on the other side of a shutter and never leave a track. Even today, academics argue about what dangers frontier families actually faced. Was it hostile wildlife, raids, disease, starvation? Yes, all of it. But they leave out the folklore, the whispers, the watchers, the things that made hardened men weep in silence and caused families to abandon perfectly good cabins in the dead of night. Just superstition, they say, and maybe they're right, but that thing didn't blink. And superstition doesn't leave you feeling like you've been measured. You stay up the rest of the night, watching the dark, listening. You know it'll come again. You're just hoping it's not tonight. Morning hits like a slow drip. Not a burst of golden light pouring through the shutters, not a triumphant rooster crowing at the dawn, just a greyness that creeps into the cabin like it's not sure it wants to be there. The fire's burned itself down to an ashy ghost, and your back aches from sleeping in that half-seated, musket-cradling way you always promise yourself you'll never do again. But you stayed alive, so you count it a success. The kids are still quiet in the loft. Too quiet, actually. You figure they didn't sleep much either. They've started to pick up on the shift. Children may not understand every danger, but they feel it in their bones. They know when the woods aren't playing fair anymore. You step outside into the chilly morning air, the kind that smells like wet bark and last night's frost. The dog follows, close on your heels as you make your now routine perimeter check. No broken traps, no shifted logs, but just beyond the line where your clearing meets the trees, you find something. Claw marks on a low trunk. 3 shallow slashes, about as long as your hand, fresh, still beading sap. You squat in front of the tree and trace the marks with a fingertip. Not bear. Too narrow. Not raccoon. Wrong angle. And if it was something natural, you tell yourself, why here? Why exactly at the point where shadow meets light? You don't tell your wife about the marks. She's already boiling water for laundry. Moving slow and stiff like someone who's holding their breath with every step. You've both been on edge since the figure in the trees, and you're trying not to tip her over into panic. Not yet. You'll watch a little longer. You'll wait and see. The strange thing is, the animals are gone. Normally, you'd see a squirrel or two, maybe hear the chirp of birdsong through the branches. Today, nothing, just wind. Even the hens are weirdly subdued, huddled in a tight clump in the coop like they're waiting for something to pass overhead. And that's when you remember something your grandfather told you once, long before you ever imagined you'd end up in a place like this. He said if the animals go quiet, something bigger than them is walking the land. Not just predators, but disruptors, things that don't fit in the natural order. Things that make the forest forget how to behave. You didn't believe him then. You were 12 and full of laughter. You didn't know yet that stories could have teeth. Now, you believe it. Because the forest is holding its breath again. You spend the rest of the morning sharpening things. Axes, knives, even the rusty draw blade you rarely use. Not because you need them sharp, but because sharpening feels like control. It's one of the few things you can control. Your wife pretends not to notice, but she lays out a little extra food near the door. Salt pork, bread, a strip of dried apple, just in case you have to leave fast, or someone has to. And that's when you start bear-proofing the homestead all over again. Now, normally you know the signs. Bears leave tracks, they leave scat, they mark trees like drunk loggers. They snuffle around for food and knock over anything that smells vaguely edible. And when they show up, it's usually messy, noisy and angry. But what you're preparing for today isn't really a bear. Not exactly, but it might come like a bear. With claws, with hunger, with heavy feet and a will to enter your home. So you bring out the bear deterrents. The real and the ridiculous. You start with the door, double bar it, and wedge 2 heavy timbers against it from inside. Then you take the old tin kettle and hang it by string from the porch beam, right where it'll crash to the ground if disturbed. You lean a rake near the window, teeth up. Not because you think a bear will be scared of a rake, but because anyone, or anything trying to step through will have to deal with it first. You place crushed pine needles and ash around the cabin's edge. A trick you learned from a trader who swore it masks human scent. Does it work? No clue, but you do it anyway. It's not about certainty, it's about rhythm. These little rituals, these quiet defensive moves, they give the illusion of security. And sometimes that illusion is the only thing holding your nerves together. Back in the cabin, your wife is washing the children's clothes in a basin. You can tell by her stiff posture that she's watching the woods too. You both are. You think we should sleep in shifts again? She asks, not looking up. Yeah, you answer. Maybe 2 at a time tonight? She nods. And the dog? You glance over. The hound is lying near the door, but her ears haven't stopped twitching since sunup. That's answer enough. There's a quirky story that floats around among trappers and traders about a bear that wasn't really a bear. They called it the Black Walker. Said it moved like a bear, but slower. Too slow. And when it stood up, it was too tall. Its eyes were too low on the face, and it didn't make noise when it walked. Just appeared. It supposedly knocked over 3 cabins in one winter, but never took food, never left a print, never took anything at all. Of course, that's the story, and you tell yourself that stories don't knock on shutters. But you hang the extra musket above the hearth tonight. You polish the barrel, you double-check the powder, not because you believe in the Black Walker, but because your instincts have been screaming at you since yesterday, and instincts don't care if the legends are real. You tell the children there might be raccoons tonight, loud ones, and if they hear noises, don't come down, don't climb out of the loft, just stay still and let Mama and Papa handle it. They nod wide-eyed. You hate lying to them, but fear needs to be shaped into something they can understand. You can't tell them the woods themselves feel like they're watching. Your wife lays out the blankets near the hearth. You won't be sleeping in bed tonight. Not either of you. She'll take the first shift. You'll sleep a little, or pretend to. Then you'll trade. That's the rhythm now. There is no peace here, just a fragile standoff with the dark. You remember what your neighbour said last year after losing 2 goats and half his garden to something that left no trail. It's not the things that growl that worry me, he said. It's the things that wait. You didn't understand him then. You do now, so you sit with the fire low, knife in hand, and wait for the shadows to get bold again. Because out here, every sound is a question, and sooner or later, you'll have to answer. You tell your children stories at night, not fairy tales, not lullabies, but the kind that teach a lesson masked as a game. It's something all frontier parents do. You say things like, if you hear the dog bark twice, go under the bed and stay quiet. You smile when you say it, make it sound like a pretend drill, like playing house or hide and seek, but you lock eyes with your oldest while you do, and he understands. He's not a baby anymore. Tonight they're up in the loft earlier than usual. The light's fading and you want them in place before the woods get weird again. You tuck in the youngest, your daughter, and as you pull the quilt over her, she whispers, "Is it still out there?" You hesitate for just a second too long, then you lie. "No, sweetheart. It's gone." She blinks, curls into herself. "Okay," but her hands grip the quilt too tightly for the lie to work. She's old enough to know the truth has edges. You climb down the ladder, and your wife meets you at the bottom, face pale in the dim lantern light. "What if it comes back tonight?" she asks. You look toward the window. Then we do what we always do, we protect the house. But she's not just thinking about the house. You both know that. You can rebuild a cabin. You can't replace what's inside. You both start prepping like it's routine. She checks the pistol, you load the musket. The dog paces between you, no longer a pet, but a partner in law. She's been acting different today, never leaving the porch, hackles up at the smallest sound. She's ready, and that should comfort you. It doesn't. You've taught the children what to do if something goes wrong. That's the part no one likes to talk about. What happens after, if someone gets through, if you don't make it. So you drill the kids quietly in whispers. If the window breaks, they hide under the bed. If they hear shouting, they stay silent. If the ladder falls, they don't climb down. And if someone they don't recognize calls their name, they don't answer. It feels brutal, but it was what everyone does. You remember a family from downriver? Nice people, always left their door open during the day, always shared extra eggs in spring. They lost a child during a raid. Not because the raiders broke in, because the girl came out. She heard someone calling for help, sounded like her mama. It wasn't. So now your kids know, don't open the door, don't come down, don't make a sound unless it's morning and the dog says it's safe. You've even shown them where the crawl space is, under the back corner of the cabin. It's tight, cold, but it's hidden. If they have to run, that's where they go. Your oldest can lift the hatch now, even though it weighs more than he does. He practices when you're out at the chopping block. You pretend not to notice, but you're proud. Frontier childhood isn't about innocence. It's about preparation. You grow up fast or not at all. Your wife pulls out the rag dolls and starts handing them to the kids one by one. They clutch them like shields. These aren't just toys. They're charms. Each doll's been sewn with a sliver of wood from the cabin walls and a loop of string from your wife's wedding dress. She read somewhere that tying a piece of the home to a child can protect them from wandering spirits. You don't know if it's true, but you believe in her belief. That's enough. You keep your voice calm as you talk them through the night's plan. You tell them there's nothing to be afraid of. You tell them they're strong. You tell them they're safe because you're here, because Mama's here, because the dog's here, and because the cabin is strong. Another lie, but one you both need. There's an open debate among historians about how much children on the frontier were truly exposed to danger. Some records suggest families went out of their way to shield them from the worst, sleeping between the man and the door, hiding them during tense visits from strangers. Others argue that kids were taught to load guns by age 8, to skin game by 9, and to recognise the sound of a breaking shutter by 10. You're inclined to believe the second group, not because it sounds noble or gritty, but because it matches what you're living. Your kids know where the bullets are. They know how to refill the powder horn. They know how to reload a pistol if someone else drops it. And they know not to scream, even when every instinct tells them to. That's the difference between survival and tragedy. You remember once, not long ago, your daughter asked, "Why do we sleep so close to the walls?" You told her, "So the house can hear us better." It wasn't true, but it made her smile, and that's sometimes the only defense you have. Words, little ones, soft ones. Your wife lights a single candle for the loft, just enough for the kids to feel brave, then she dims everything else. You leave the fire low again. Only embers. Your traps are set. The cans are strung, the shutters are locked. The extra musket is loaded, and the dog is sitting in front of the door like a statue of patience and judgment. You sit down again, back against the wall, same as the night before, and wait. You wonder if tonight will be like last night. You wonder if the whispering will return. But most of all, you wonder if the kids are strong enough to handle what might come. They are. You've taught them, you've shown them how, but still will you wonder. There's a knock at the door. Not the wind, not a branch falling. A knock. 2 slow, deliberate raps, like someone politely announcing their arrival at a neighbour's house. It's just past midnight. You're wide awake, and the fire is almost dead. The embers glow faint red like the eyes of something watching from under the bed. Your heart doesn't race. Not right away. You just go still. The kind of still where your body instinctively forgets how to breathe. The dog raises her head, ears pricked, but doesn't bark. That's worse than barking. Barking means confusion. Silence means certainty. Your wife straightens from her seat in the rocker, fingers tight around the pistol in her lap. Her eyes meet yours across the dark cabin. You don't need to speak. You've trained for this in the quiet hours, in whispers over weak coffee and sharpened knives. It's like a script now. No one visits at midnight. Not unless something's gone terribly wrong. You shift your weight silently and move toward the window, slow, quiet, smooth as molasses. You press your face to the slat, careful not to breathe too hard, and peer out. Nothing, just trees and mist. A slice of moon overhead, thin as a blade, casting long silver shadows across the ground. Another knock, still polite, still measured. No voice follows it, no call for help, no scream, just expectation. You move your hand to the musket resting against the wall and bring it close, then nod to your wife. She doesn't move, but you see her lips twitch as she counts to 3 under her breath. She's ready to fire. So are you. You speak then, loud and clear. "Who's there?" Silence. You wait. Then a voice comes. "Just passing through," it says, male, calm, friendly. That's worse than angry. Your wife's eyes widen. The dog lets out a low, warning growl. You answer, "Keep moving. This is a private homestead. I'd be much obliged if I could come in for a minute. Just need to warm up. I don't mean any harm." Your hand tightens on the musket. No part of you believes that voice. It's too clean, too practiced. Out here, real travellers don't sound that rehearsed. They stammer. They knock like they're apologising. They announce their name, their town, their family connections, and they bow at your back sipped from the door until you open it. If you open it. But this one's close. Too close. You can hear his breath between the words. You imagine him smiling while he speaks. "Keep moving," you say again. He doesn't answer this time. The knocking doesn't return either. Just quiet. Long, stretched-in quiet. You wait. 5 minutes. 10. You glance toward the loft. You can't hear the kids, but you hope they're still asleep. Or at least pretending to be. You edge back toward the window and peer out again. Still nothing. But the air feels heavier now, like the forest is holding in a breath. Your wife hasn't moved, and the pistol is still levelled at the door. Then a sound from the back of the cabin. Footsteps on the grass, not rushed, not quiet either, like someone wants you to know they're circling. They step right up to the rear shutter. You hear the faintest brush of fingers on the wood. A test. The dog bolts to the back door, snarling now, full volume. That gets your blood moving. You shift, musket aimed at the wall, tracking the sound as best you can. You know your house. You know every beam and board. You calculate angles, then silence again, and then knocking, again, but this time it's not at the front door, it's at the back. 3 short knocks, and a whisper. "Let me in! It's cold out here." Your stomach drops, because the voice is wrong now. It's your voice, perfectly copied. You spin toward your wife, and her eyes are already filled with horror. "That's not funny," she mouths, her voice trembling. "I didn't say that," you whisper. "I know." The dog's going wild now, barking so hard her front paws leave the ground. She throws herself at the back door like she wants to rip it off the hinges, but the knocking doesn't stop. Knock, knock, knock. "Please, it's cold, but..." You whisper again, "That's not me." And here's the part where your mind starts breaking off into sections. One part is calm, clinical, going over what's physically possible. Could someone be imitating you? Maybe. A man with a good ear, a sick joke and a criminal tactic. But another part, the older part, the part that believes in things without names, knows something else is out there. Something that mimics, something that tests. You've heard stories in fragments, campfire whispers. Don't answer the door at night if the voice is wrong. Don't speak back to something that repeats you. Don't respond if something knows your name but you didn't tell it. You step forward, raising your voice again. "Leave. Now." But the voice doesn't leave. It doesn't argue. It starts laughing, not loud, not wild, just a soft bubbling chuckle. Your chuckle. The exact one you make when you're nervous and trying to pretend you're not. Your wife covers her mouth. She's crying now silently. You aim your musket at the back wall. You want to fire through it, but you don't. You hold, and then, all at once, it stops. No footsteps, no more knocks. The dog goes silent, mid-bark. It's like someone hit pause on the whole world. You stand there frozen. For how long? You don't know. Eventually your wife rises, legs shaking, and walks toward the kids' ladder. She climbs up, pistol still in hand. You hear her whispering to them, then a muffled sob. You stay by the door the rest of the night. No more voices come. But you don't dare sleep. Because now the woods have your voice, and you have no idea what they plan to do with it. It's the moon you blame, that pale, perfect disk hanging above the trees like it's watching everything and promising nothing. Full, bright, cruel. You forgot this was coming, this was a full moon week. Or maybe you didn't forget. Maybe you just didn't want to remember. You stand on the porch the next evening, musket in hand, the dog at your feet, and feel the light bleed over the land like water through cracked wood. There's nowhere to hide tonight. Shadows are thin, corners are lit, the kind of night where secrets don't bother staying secret. The full moon changes things out here. Everyone knows it. Animals act strange, braver or dumber, you're never sure which. Coyotes howl like they're announcing a war you didn't sign up for. People too, your neighbours lock their doors tighter on full moon nights. Say less, move quieter. You've heard more stories about raids, vanishings and sudden madness tied to full moons than to storms or seasons. You don't write that off as coincidence anymore. You've seen it firsthand. There was a man 2 valleys over, gentle as a lamb by day, played fiddle at barn dances, gave his extra eggs away in the spring. One night, under a full moon, he walked barefoot into the woods and never came back. Not once. Not a scream, not a track. Just gone. Some say he went mad, some say he was called. Others whisper that he was replaced. A neighbour found his hat a week later, nailed to a tree in a clearing. No footprints, no blood, just the hat. That's the kind of night tonight is. You head back inside, bolting the door behind you, every lock echoing louder than usual. You've added extra latches now, pieces of wood wedged into frame gaps, nails hammered through the ends of planks for grip. The cabin feels like a sealed box now, tight as a drum, and still it's not enough. Because the light gets in, the moon seeps through every crack. You don't need candles tonight. The moon lights the whole inside like a stage. Your wife stands by the hearth, jaw tight. Pistol tucked into her apron like it belongs there now. The kids are already upstairs, but you hear them whispering. The kind of whispering kids do when they know something's wrong and are trying to keep their fears contained in syllables too soft to hurt anyone. You don't stop them, you let them whisper. It's a form of courage. You set the musket down gently and sit by the fire. Not too close. You don't like how your shadow stretches tonight, long and thin, like it's trying to leave your body behind. The dog paces, then lies down in the middle of the room, tail stiff, eyes locked on the window. She hasn't wagged in days. You miss that. There's something about full moons and the frontier that doesn't sit right with history books. Scholars talk about lunacy like it's just an old superstition, a word born from ignorance. But you've lived through enough full moons out here to understand why folks believe the light changed people. You've seen it, heard it. The forest moves differently on these nights. Sounds carry further. Shapes linger longer. Even time seems to stretch. You remember one night, years ago, before you built this cabin. You were camped out with 3 other men, clearing brush, laying stakes, planning where their homes would go. That night the moon was full and too bright to sleep under. You stayed up staring at it, listening to the others snore, and then a sound, low, humming, almost like music, came from the trees. One of the men started mumbling in his sleep, then stood up, eyes closed, and walked into the dark. The others had to tackle him to stop him from going deeper. He didn't remember any of it the next morning. You didn't build your cabin near that place. Tonight feels like that. A thin pressure in the air, a hum under your skin. You don't hear the music, but your bones remember the rhythm, and that's not all. The forest is lit up now, bright enough that you can see between the trees, all the way to the edge of the ravine. You don't like it. You prefer the dark. At least in the dark, things stay hidden. Full moon nights feel like they're daring you to look closer. You stand again and walk to the window. Open the shutter a crack, look out. You see movement immediately. At first, it's just a figure between 2 trees, then another, not close, not even approaching, just standing. Not doors, not tricks, real forms, still and silent. You count 3, then 5, then 7. You don't call your wife over. She doesn't need to see. You don't call out. You're past that now, you know better. They don't move. You close the shutter, latch it quietly. You sit back down, musket across your lap. The dog hasn't blinked. You try to think it through. If they were going to rush the cabin, they would have done it already. If they were here to watch, they've succeeded. If there's something else entirely, well, you have no playbook for that. There's a strange little fact that floats around out here, passed down from settler to settler. Not written down, never officially recorded. It goes like this. The full moon doesn't show you more of the world. It shows the world more of you. You always thought that was poetic nonsense. Now you're not so sure, because something out there knows you're inside. It sees you. It sees all of you. And it's not just curious. It's waiting. What for, you don't know. A weakness, a mistake, an invitation. Your wife comes to sit beside you. She leans against your shoulder, silent. The candle on the table flickers in protest, like even the flame wants out. The kids have stopped whispering. That's worse than the whispering. The moon creeps higher. So you stay seated, musket in hand, heart slow, mind sharp. You don't plan to sleep tonight. No one should sleep when the moon is this full, because the watchers are patient. And they never miss a chance to come closer. You don't know what wakes you. You weren't supposed to sleep, but sometime near dawn your eyes must have closed. Not deep sleep, just the kind where the world blurs around the edges and your grip on the musket loosens. The dog is what brings you back. Not barking, not growling, just standing motionless at the front door. Her head tilted slightly like she's hearing something you can't. You follow her gaze to the crack between the planks. Pale grey light is leaking in now, just enough to tell you the moon's finally dipped below the trees and the day is somewhere close, but not close enough to count on. Your wife's still asleep in the rocker, arms crossed, jaw slack from exhaustion. You hate to wake her. She needs this rest. But something outside doesn't care what either of you needs. The dog steps closer to the door, puts her nose right up to the wood. She sniffs once, then sits, still alert but not alarmed. That's worse somehow. Alert means danger. Calm means something already decided. You rise slowly, feeling the stiff weight in your legs, the way your spine protests after hours hunched in one position. Your back feels like it belongs to a man twice your age. You ease over to the door and place your ear against the wood. Nothing. Then a thud. Not hard, just deliberate. You hold your breath. Thud. Again you motion to the dog. She doesn't move. Another thud, softer this time, like someone dropped a sack of potatoes just outside. Your hand slides to the latch, but you stop yourself. This is how it gets you, makes you open the door, makes you look, and you've heard too many stories to fall for that. You've heard about the boy who answered a knock 3 nights in a row. The first night, no one was there. The second, there were footprints, bare ones, even though the frost was thick. The third night he opened the door, and his mother said he just stood there frozen, said the thing didn't go in, didn't move, just stood outside, inches from the threshold. By morning the boy had gone quiet, never spoke again. He sits in a rocking chair now, down south of the river, just rocking, all day, never blinks when it's cloudy. You won't make that mistake. You go to the shutter instead, Bush always says, the one facing east, and ease it open just enough to see the yard. There, in the exact centre of the clearing, is something new, a bundle, wrapped in burlap, tied with twine. It wasn't there last night, and there's no mistaking it now. You stare at it for a long time. Your fingers twitch around the musket. You think about shooting it, just unloading the shot into that lump of fabric like it's full of bad luck and worse news. But you don't, because if they left it for you, they want you to interact with it. And out here, sometimes the only winning move is to do nothing. You leave the shutter crack just wide enough to keep watching. You sit back down and you wait. Eventually your wife wakes, sees your face, sees the way you're holding yourself, says nothing. Instead she walks to the east shutter and peeks through. She sees it too, and her face goes pale. You whisper, "Don't touch it." She nods, already knew. Instead, she sets about making coffee, hands shaking as she works. The smell fills the room like armour. One of the few things that still feels normal. That first sip is like a prayer. You both drink, silent, eyes on the bundle outside. Later, when the sun climbs just high enough to throw full light on the clearing, you get a better look. The twine is wrapped tight, crisscrossed with a precision that says whoever, or whatever, did this wanted it to stay together. There's something damp about the fabric. Not wet, not dripping, but like it's been out in the dew. Or blood that you can't tell from here. It's where your brain starts lying to you. Starts filling in the blank spaces. What's in the bundle? Food? A warning? A dead animal? A message? Something worse? Some old settler legends talk about forest offerings, a way for certain things to mark territory. A signal. Take it and you've accepted a deal. Leave it and you've insulted them. Burn it and you'd better hope your soul runs faster than their rage. No one agrees on what to actually do when something leaves you a gift. And that's the trap. Doing nothing might be wrong, doing something might be worse. You decide to leave it for now. Wait, watch. You spend the day inside, all of you. The kids are restless, but they feel the tension. They don't ask to go outside. They play with sticks in the loft, talk in whispers, peek through the cracks in the shutters like they're afraid the trees are listening. Your wife keeps the pistol nearby all day. Even while she's sweeping, even while she's cooking, she hasn't laughed in a week. You're starting to forget what her laugh sounds like. You keep checking the bundle every hour, and it just sits there. But by late afternoon, something's different. You notice it as soon as you peek again. The bundle is closer, not by much, maybe 2 feet. But you know you didn't move it, and no one made a sound. You lower the shutter slowly and swallow hard. Your palms are damp. You think about setting a fire. Think about marching out there, pouring kerosene over it and turning it to ash. But the smarter part of you, the older, deeper part, whispers, not yet. Because this isn't just a test, it's a game. The kind the forest plays when the moon's been too bright and too long. That night you sleep in shifts again. The dog doesn't sleep at all, and neither does the bundle. Because by morning, it's at the porch steps, tied, waiting. And you swear to God you didn't hear it move. You stare at it for a long time. That bundle, sitting right there on the edge of the porch like it climbed up and got tired halfway to the door. The twine still tight, the burlap still damp and discoloured in the spots you don't want to think too much about. You didn't hear it move, nobody heard a thing, and that's what chills you deeper than any scream in the night ever could, because things that move silently aren't usually born of flesh and blood. Your wife stands beside you now, barefoot on the cabin floor, eyes locked on the thing like it might blink. She doesn't say it, but you both know something left that for you, not someone, something. The difference matters now. The dog's been pacing ever since sunrise, no barking, just pacing. Up and down the length of the cabin, tail low, ears rigid, teeth showing every so often like she's thinking about biting the air itself. She won't go near the door. You tried earlier, opened it a crack just to see if she'd bolt. She backed away like you'd lifted a snake. That's all the confirmation you need. You close the door again, bar it, add the chair, then you sit. You don't go outside that day, not for water, not for firewood, not even to feed the chickens. And honestly, you're not sure you still have chickens. You haven't seen or heard them since yesterday morning. And you're not planning to check right now. You don't want to know what's waiting behind the coop. Instead, you keep an eye on the bundle. Watching through the crack in the shutter, the barrel of your musket resting against the window frame like an unspoken threat. It doesn't move, not now, not while you're watching. But you get the sense that if you blink too long, it'll be inside the house before you can finish opening your eyes again. By midday, your wife whispers the thing you've both been trying not to say. We have to do something. You nod. You know. But the question is what? Burning it? Too bold, too final, too much like a challenge, leaving it. That hasn't worked. It moved closer anyway. Touching it? You'd rather not. No part of you wants your hands on whatever's inside, even if it's empty, especially if it's empty. So you settle on a compromise. Observation, you climb into the loft, careful not to wake the kids, and position yourself at the small lookout slit you carved into the wall years ago, the one angled just right to see the porch. From here you can see the bundle clearly, lying still, sun catching on the frayed edges of the twine. You take your musket with you, of course. You settle in for a long watch. Hours pass, nothing changes, until suddenly it does. You hear a sound you can't place at first, like something being dragged across rough wood. Your wife hears it too, she's already at the window. You signal her to stay back, then turn back to your lookout. The bundle has shifted. Not much. Just a few inches to the left. You watch, breath caught in your throat as it twitches, like something inside is stretching or breathing. You don't shout, you don't move, and then you hear it, not outside, inside, a tiny, high-pitched whimper. Your heart lurches. You drop from the loft faster than you should, landing hard on the floor with your musket in hand. Your wife gasps, but you wave her quiet. Then you hear it again, a child's cry, from inside the bundle. You rush to the door, hand on the bar, not thinking now, just reacting, because if there's a child out there, hurt or worse, you can't just sit here. But then... Your wife grabs your arm. Don't. You turn. Her face is pale, shaking, eyes wide with terror. Did you hear what it said? What? It wasn't crying. It was calling your name. And just like that, your blood turns to ice. Because she's right. The second time, the sound you thought was a cry, it wasn't just a noise, it was a whisper. In a child's voice. Saying your name. You step back from the door. She rebars it. Neither of you speaks. You don't sleep that night. The fire stays low, the kids don't stir once, and in the quiet just before dawn you hear it again. Your name, softer this time, coming from just the other side of the door. You don't answer. You don't even blink, because some things, once acknowledged, don't go away. And right now, it's not the bundle you're afraid of. It's what put it there. You listen, and you wait, because sooner or later, whatever it is, it wants in, and it knows your name. You don't open the door that morning, not for the sunlight, not for air, not even for the faint sound of the creek whispering somewhere beyond the trees, pretending everything's normal. You sit with your back against the door instead, musket across your knees, listening, waiting. The bundle hasn't made another sound, not yet, but that almost makes it worse. You know it's there, just inches away, and it's quiet on purpose, listening back. Your wife doesn't speak much today. She keeps busy with chores that don't need doing, wiping down the same shelf 3 times, rearranging the dried herbs, mending a sock that already has too many stitches to save. Anything to keep her hands from shaking. The kids sense it. They stay upstairs, whispering to each other in that cautious, thin way children do when they've decided silence might actually protect them. Every so often, one of them peeks through a gap in the loft boards to check on you, eyes wide and wordless. You don't tell them to stop. You'd be doing the same thing if the roles were reversed. When the noon light hits, it spills across the cracks in the door. The dog's lying beside you, her head pressed to the floorboards, eyes closed but ears twitching. She hasn't eaten since yesterday. You pour a little water into her tin bowl, but she just sniffs at it and backs away. She's smarter than both of you in some ways. She knows this isn't over. You finally stand. The air inside the cabin feels too thick, heavy with breath and old smoke. You need to know if the thing is still there. You move to the side window and open the shutter a fraction. The porch is empty. The bundle is gone. You scan the clearing, heart climbing into your throat. Nothing. Not by the steps, not near the stumps, not in the yard, gone. For a long time you don't move, then you step back from the window, exhaling through your nose. Your wife looks up. It's gone, you say. Her voice is small. Are you sure? You nod. For now. But the truth is you're not sure of anything. Gone doesn't mean gone. Out here, gone usually means waiting. You sit it again, but it feels different now, like the walls themselves are leaning in to listen. The house creaks. A normal sound, probably, but it feels like the cabin is reminding you it's alive too, that it's been through things before you ever showed up, and that it's not done testing you yet. The rest of the afternoon crawls by. You check the windows again and again, every few minutes at first, then every few seconds. The sun moves slow across the clearing, shadows stretching, curling, slipping closer to the door. You've noticed that the light around the cabin doesn't fall quite right anymore. It bends. The trees lean toward you when the wind picks up, like they're trying to see inside. By early evening, you can't take the waiting. You have to know. You tell your wife to stay with the kids, then unbar the door. The wood groans like it's protesting your decision. The dog doesn't follow this time. She watches you go, tail flat against the floor. You step onto the porch, musket raised. The world smells of damp leaves and wood smoke, and the air feels colder than it should. The clearing looks the same at first, silent, harmless. Then you see them, footprints, small ones, bare, eating from the bottom of the steps out toward the trees. You crouch. The prints are spaced unevenly, like whoever, or whatever made them didn't walk right. One foot drags a little, the toes dig too deep, and then there's the size, child-sized. You follow them a few steps, then stop. You've gone far enough to see the pattern vanish into the underbrush. But you're not going to follow into the trees. That's what the story wants. You know that now. Every story like this ends the same way, with someone stepping too far past the edge of safety. You back up slowly towards the cabin, eyes scanning every shadow. The woods are silent again. Not quiet. Silent. Even the wind has stopped. When you get inside, your wife's face tells you she heard something. What? You ask. She points toward the back wall. Underneath. You crouch. There's a sound coming from beneath the floorboards. Faint. Scratching. Then a tiny knock, knock, knock. You freeze. The dog is on her feet now, growling, teeth bared. The sound moves along the base of the wall, travelling, dragging. It stops under the hearth, right below where the fire used to burn bright. You step back, heart hammering, but you keep your voice steady. Get the kids, you tell your wife. Upstairs, now. She doesn't argue. She just moves. You hear the ladder creak, the small scuffle of feet, the whisper of the pistol being cocked upstairs. The scratching resumes. Longer now. Slow, deliberate lines being traced into the underside of your house. You think of claws, of nails, of fingers. You don't speak to it. You don't call out. Instead, you grab a shovel and start shoveling ashes into the hearth, smothering whatever thin warmth remains. Then you whisper a prayer you half remember from your childhood. Not because you think it'll help, but because the sound of your own voice might be the only thing keeping you sane. By the time the moon climbs again, the scratching stops. You wait another hour before daring to move. When you finally sit down, it's with your back against the door, musket laid across your legs. Somewhere below you, in the cold earth under your home, something shifts once more. Just enough to remind you it's still there, still watching, still learning, and the floor suddenly feels thinner than it used to. The fire is out, stone cold. That never happens. Not in your house, not on purpose. Every night since you built this cabin, you've kept it burning. Low maybe, banked under ash, sure, but never out, is the one rule you've followed without fail, the quiet command passed down from old voices and older instincts. Keep the fire alive. And now, here you are, before dawn, in a room gone dark and bitter with chill, staring at a dead hearth. You don't know when it happened. The last thing you remember was leaning back against the door, musket across your chest, eyelids too heavy, head starting to nod. Just a blink, you told yourself, just a moment. Now it's hours later and the air is too still, your back sore, the dog's missing from her usual spot and the hearth, your trusted companion through 100 nights is Darko. Your wife is awake too, already sitting up, rubbing her arms. She doesn't ask how it happened, she just looks at the hearth like someone's died. Upstairs, the kids are still asleep or pretending to be. You hope it's the former. You're not ready to explain anything to them yet. You move quickly, maybe too quickly. You scrape the bottom of the hearth, looking for any surviving ember, any buried spark. Nothing, just ash. You dig deeper, hoping. Nothing. So you gather kindling, dry twigs, shavings from yesterday's wood pile. Your hands work on their own, fast but practiced, while your eyes flick to the shutters. All closed, all latched. You haven't checked outside yet. You're not ready. You strike the flint once, twice, sparks jump, fade. Third strike, the kindling catches. Just barely. You blow gently, coaxing life from dry death. The flame stirs, wavers, then grows. Orange creeps across the walls like a sunrise, thin but steady. Your wife exhales audibly. And only then do you realise how long you've both been holding your breath. The dog returns from the back corner of the room, tail low, eyes wide. She doesn't come close to the hearth like she usually does. Instead, she paces a wide arc around it. That's when you notice something else. She's limping. Front left paw. You kneel, beckon softly, and after a moment's hesitation, she limps over and sits beside you. You lift her paw. There's a cut, small but clean, like a razor nick. Not torn like a thorn would do, and not deep enough for a trap. Just a single line across the pad oozing slow red. You clean it with warm water and a rag, but your mind's not on the wound. It's on how she got it, and when. You glance at the floor, the sound from last night, beneath the hearth. The dog was under there. You and your wife exchange a look. No words, just knowing. She kneels and runs a hand along the floorboards near the hearth, then stops. Her fingers find something etched into the wood. A shallow groove, then another, and another. You grab the lantern, light it, and hold it close. Claw marks, 5 of them, spaced like fingers. They weren't there yesterday. You stand slowly, knees creaking, heart thudding. You check the latch on the trapdoor that leads beneath the house. It's still closed, still latched. But now, that doesn't feel like enough. The air under there is old, heavy. You can smell it through the seams in the floor. Damp earth, sour rot, a whiff of something, burnt. You reinforce the trapdoor with a plank and 4 iron nails. Not elegant, not subtle, but effective. Your wife hands you the hammer without being asked. The kids come down just as you're finishing, their faces pale and tired. You fake a smile, tell them it is just a repair, something loose. They nod because they want to believe you. Not because they do. You try to distract them with breakfast, bread and jam, the last of it. Your wife stirs a little cornmeal mush over the fire. No one eats much, not even the tour. After breakfast you check the outside, cautiously, slowly. You half expect to find the bundle returned. Or worse, something new, but there's nothing. Just the clearing, quiet, uneasy. You circle the cabin, you see tracks again, those same small bare feet. This time they're all around the house, circling, lingering, watching, and then you find the smear of blood on the porch, just a smear. Right where the dog sleeps, you go back inside, bar the door, you don't tell your wife, she's already shaken enough. The rest of the day passes like a long fever. No one speaks much. The kids don't play. Your wife starts whispering prayers while she works, not the ones she grew up with. These are older, rougher, words you don't recognise. You don't ask where she learned them, you just listen. That night you light 2 lanterns. Keep one on the table, one by the hearth. You make sure the fire is stacked high, dry wood ready. You sit close to it, warming your hands, watching how the flames move. Because here's the thing no one tells you about tending a fire on the frontier. It's not just about warmth. It's about light. About control. A living fire says, I'm here. I'm awake. I'm watching. And when the fire dies, the message flips. So you keep it burning. All night if you have to. Here's a fringe belief you heard once. From a woman who lived alone past the ridge. The one with a face like leather and eyes like flint. She said that certain things from the woods hate fire. Not because it hurts them, but because it shows them. Like the light itself pins them down. Shows them what they really are. She never explained what she meant. But her house, fireplaces in every room, and she slept with a torch lit at her door. She's gone now. No one knows how or when. Her house is empty, rotted. The torch is long cold, but her stories? You remember every one. So tonight you sit by the fire, musket ready, a flame high, you don't blink, you don't doze, because the scratches are on the inside now, and the warmth is all you've got left between here and something you don't want to see clearly. Morning breaks like a question you don't want to answer. You've made it through the night, but something about it feels unfinished, like the forest hasn't let you go yet. The fire still burns, low but steady. Your eyes are dry and scratchy. Your hands smell like ash and oil. The dog finally sleeps, curled up near the hearth, bandaged paw tucked underneath her. Your wife's behind you, wrapped in a quilt on the floor, pistol still resting on her chest. You don't even remember when she drifted off. The cabin is silent except for the soft hiss of embers and the occasional creak of settling wood. But the quiet feels wrong, thick, like the air is full of things left unsaid. You glance toward the floor again, where those scratches are now part of your home. You can't unsee them. Can't unknow that something crawled beneath your hearth, reached up from the ground and left its mark. You let your wife sleep a while longer and step outside, musket in hand, shutting the door softly behind you. The morning is grey, clouded, the kind of day where the sun tries but doesn't quite win. Fog clings to the tree line. You walk slowly, checking the perimeter of the cabin, then the garden, then the coop. There are no chickens, not a single one. The coop door hangs open, latch torn clean off. Inside, feathers swirl in the dirt like snowflakes. No blood, no prints, just absence. You walk a wide circle around the coop, still nothing. Not even the dragged lines of a fox or coyote. It's like they were never here. That's how it happens now. Things just go, one by one, quietly. You check the traps next, and they've all been triggered. But nothing inside, just sprung wire and disturbed leaves. You reset them anyway, out of habit more than hope. By the time you get back to the cabin, the fog has thickened. Trees blur together, and the edges of your clearing feel closer than usual, like the forest is inching in. You close the door and lock it, even though it's daylight. You don't feel safe today, not even a little. Your wife's awake now, boiling water for tea. Her hands shake a little, but she doesn't say anything. You sit down beside her. She pours you a tin cup, and the steam fogs your face. I had a dream, she says quietly. You don't interrupt. There was a voice, a child's voice, saying my name, telling me to come outside. You nod slowly. I heard it too. She looks at you. In the dream? No, you say. Not in a dream. She goes quiet after that, just holds the cup, hands wrapped tight around it like it's the only thing anchoring her to the world. Later that day, you go up to the loft to check the crawlspace hatch, the one you showed the kids months ago. It's still shut, still hidden beneath the loose floorboard. You open it, just to make sure nothing's been tampered with, and lower yourself down into the dirt. It's cramped, dark and damp. Your shoulders press against the beams as you crawl in a little ways, the lantern flickering against the low ceiling. And that's when you see it. A drawing. Scratched into the hard-packed soil with what looks like a bone or stick, a crude outline of a cabin. Your cabin. 4 stick figures inside, one in each corner. Outside, a circle of smaller figures, surrounding. watching. You stare at it for a long time. The stick that made the drawing is still there, planted in the centre, like a tiny totem. You don't touch it. You back out slowly, sealing the hatch tight when you leave, and place a heavy box on top, just in case. You don't tell your wife. Not yet. You don't want her to know they've been inside. That night, you gather every piece of wood you can find, old floorboards, furniture legs, half-rotten fence posts, and stack them by the hearth. You light the fire early and you build it high, higher than usual. Your wife watches, says nothing. The kids are quieter now, even the youngest. They huddle close together upstairs, falling asleep in a bundle like a litter of pups. You hope they're dreaming about normal things, running, lakes, summertime. But probably not. Not anymore. You sit with the musket again, this time facing the door instead of the hearth. You've decided that whatever's coming won't come from below next time. It'll knock again, or it won't. Either way, you'll be ready. Here's the thing no one tells you about the frontier. You're never alone. Not really. The woods are full of things that don't belong in books. Some of them walk on 2 legs, some on 4, and some on none at all. There's an old fringe belief whispered in the trading posts and passed between hunters like poison in a flask. They say there's a breed of forest spirit, not ghost, not demon, that exists only where human homes meet wild ground. It doesn't attack right away, doesn't kill, it soaks in like damp, but it learns your routines, mimics your voice, tests the corners of your fear. You remember hearing that story once, years ago, when you still thought the woods were just woods. A trader called it the learning kind, said it started with voices, then dreams, then gifts, then disappearances. The next morning you asked where the trader lived. He just smiled. "I don't," he said. Now you understand what he meant. The wind howls that night, but nothing knocks. No scratches, no cries, just the long, slow watching kind of silence that feels like something holding its breath. You fall asleep with your eyes open, flame flickering against your boots, and somewhere between midnight and dawn, the fire dims just for a moment. And in that flicker, you see something standing outside the window, smiling. At first, you think it's just a trick of the firelight. The way flame wobbles against glass can do strange things. Make tree branches look like arms, turn fog into faces, carve meaning into shapes that don't deserve it. You tell yourself that's all this is, a trick, but you don't believe it. You can't believe it, because what you saw, what you're still seeing, isn't a blur or a reflection. It's a face, clear, close, watching from the other side of the window. You don't breathe, you don't blink, you just sit there staring at it. The smile doesn't move, the eyes don't blink, they shimmer faintly in the reflection of the dying fire. And the longer you look, the more you realise it's not quite a face at all. It's your face, not perfect, but close enough that your stomach twists. The skin's wrong, too pale, stretched tight across bone, but the mouth, the chin, the shape of the eyes, all of it mimics you, like something studying you from memory and getting 90% right. Then it tilts its head. You do not move. The thing mirrors you, same angle, same slow motion, as if the glass is a reflection delayed by a few seconds. You test it, shift your shoulder, blink once, lean forward. The copy leans too, but not in sync. There's a lag, like it's guessing. You whisper no, and it smiles wider. That's when you grab the musket. Your hands don't shake, not yet. You aim for the window, barrel steady, eyes locked on that face. It doesn't move now, just holds the grin, eyes like wet stones. Your finger curls on the trigger. Then your wife's voice cuts through the dark. Don't. You freeze. She's standing in the doorway to the loft ladder, pale and shaking. Don't shoot, she says again, softer this time. If you do, it'll come inside. How do you know, you whisper? She doesn't answer, just stares past you toward the window. You risk a glance back. The face is gone, just fog and faint moonlight now. You lower the musket, careful, then rush to the window. You unlatch the shutter, push it open, peer out. Nothing, no prints in the frost, no movement, just empty night and the echo of your own heart pounding in your chest. When you close the shutter again, your hands are trembling. You didn't realise until now how cold the air is. Your wife's still at the ladder, eyes red and unfocused. What did you see? You ask. She doesn't look at you when she answers. You sit back down, muscles stiff, brain spinning. The fire pops behind you. You flinch at the sound. There's a moment, a long one, where neither of you speaks. The silence grows until it feels like a living thing between you, heavy and breathing. Finally, you say, "It's copying us." She nods. "It's learning." You think of the drawing in the crawl space, the circle of small figures around the cabin. You think of the bundle on the porch, of the voice calling your name, of the scratches beneath the hearth. You think of the trader's words, the learning kind, and you know now it's not here to kill you. Not yet. It's here to study. The day that follows feels half real. You go through the motions, fetch water, patch the roof, feed the fire, but your mind is far away, looping through every detail of the night before. You find yourself glancing at mirrors, at the reflection in your tin cup, at your shadow stretching across the floor, watching to see if anything lags behind, watching to see if anything else is watching you. Your wife spends the morning praying, quietly, but you hear the edge in her words. They don't sound like comfort. They sound like bargains. You decide to do something you've avoided since the first strange night. You visit your nearest neighbour. He lives less than half a mile away, but it feels like crossing into another world. You leave your wife with the musket, take the pistol for yourself, and tell her you'll be back before dark. The dog whines as you open the door, but doesn't follow. You wish you would. The woods feel wrong. The air is thick, muffled. You can't hear your own footsteps. You pass the old maple with the lightning scar, the one you use as a landmark. From there, you should be able to see the neighbour's roof through the trees. You don't. Not right away, you walk a little faster. Finally you find the cabin, or what's left of it. The roof has caved in, the door is gone, the windows are black, hollow. You call out his name once, twice, nothing. You push the door open, step inside, everything's still. Too still. The smell of rot and damp wood hits you first. Then you see the table, set for two, plates crusted with what might have been supper weeks ago. The fire's long dead. You glance toward the far wall. There are marks there, carved deep into the wood, overlapping and jagged. At first you think they're scratches too, but when you step closer, you realise they're letters. Help not alone. And below that, faint but fresh, like someone's clawed it with a nail just days ago. It watches me watch it. You step back slowly. The air feels heavier here. You glance toward the hearth. There's something burned into the ashes, a shape, charred black, curled into itself. It takes your brain a second to understand what you're seeing. A hand, not a whole one, just bone and scraps of skin. You stumble backward, hit the table, send a tin plate clattering to the floor. The sound is deafening in the silence. Then you hear something outside, soft footsteps, slow, dragging, circling the cabin. You move toward the doorway, pistol raised. You can't see through the window's grime, but you can feel it. The same awareness that's haunted you for nights. It's here too. You back out the door into the cold, turning in a slow circle. The forest looks empty, but you know better. You start to run. By the time you reach your clearing again, your lungs burn and your hands are numb. You slam the door behind you, bolt it, and stand there breathing hard. Your wife looks up from the hearth, eyes wide. What happened? You just shake your head. You don't tell her about the hand or the words. You just say, he's gone. That night you don't light a small fire. You build one so big the walls flicker red. And for the first time you understand something important. The fire isn't there to keep you warm anymore. It's there to make the darkness remember who it's dealing with. You lose track of the days after that. Time frays at the edges like worn cloth. You sleep in fits, short bursts filled with the flickers of sound and blurred faces at the windows. The sun comes and goes like it's uncertain whether it should bother rising at all. Your routine, once steady and comforting, now feels hollow, like a ritual performed more out of fear than faith. You chop wood not because you need it, but because moving keeps the shadows at bay. You fix the broken shutter for the fourth time, even though it was never broken. You count the bullets in your box every morning. 6 left, then 5, then 4. The fire stays lit, always. You tend it like it's alive, because maybe it is. Maybe it's the last living thing in this house besides your family. You sleep beside it now, face turned toward the door, the musket always across your lap. You and your wife don't speak much anymore. Not because there's nothing to say, but because too much needs saying. You'd have to unravel yourselves word by word, and there's no time for that. The kids have changed too. They're quieter, paler. They don't play, they don't ask to go outside. Your daughter hums sometimes, soft and tuneless, the same 2 notes over and over. When you ask what song it is, she just says, "It's not a song, it's a sound I hear." You want to tell her to stop humming. You want to say that kind of talk isn't helpful, but something in her eyes stops you. Something very old and very tired that should not be living behind the eyes of a child. The dog doesn't leave the hearth anymore. She watches the corners of the room now, not the door, not the window, the corners, the places light has trouble reaching. You try not to follow her gaze, for you don't want to see what she sees. On the fourth night after your visit to the neighbours, if it really has been 4 nights, you hear your own voice again, this time from inside the house. It starts with a laugh, not loud, just enough. Then a whisper, there you are. You sit up fast, heart hammering. Your wife looks at you from her bedroll. That wasn't you? You shake your head. You move slowly, musket raised, sweeping the room with your eyes. The sound had come from behind the woodpile. You edge toward it. The fire flares as you move, shadows dancing across the walls. You reach the woodpile. Nothing, just logs, dry and innocent. Then you hear it again, from behind you now. Is it safe, puppy? A child's voice. Your daughter's voice. You whirl around, but she's upstairs. You can hear her breathing. The thing is mimicking everyone now. You don't sleep that night. You sit beside the fire, watching the window, the corners, the hatch to the crawl space. You don't blink unless you have to. By morning, you've made a decision. You're going to seal the house, all of it. You tear down the coop and drag the boards inside. You hammer planks over the windows, not just shutters, wood, thick, nailed in crosswise. You fill the gaps between logs with mud and ash, pack them until your fingers bleed. You wedge stones under the floorboards, block the crawl space hatch with everything you've got, furniture, wood, material. You use what's left of your salt to draw a line across the threshold, then circle the hearth with the rest. Your wife watches silently, helps without needing direction. The kids don't ask what you're doing. They sit upstairs now near the hatch to the roof, peering out the chimney's clean-out window, a square barely wide enough for a squirrel to fit through. It's the only open line to the outside world. You leave it for now. It's the only light you trust. The day passes in labour. Dust in your lungs. Splinters in your palms. The dog follows you with that low growl she's developed lately, like she's warning something not to step closer. Every nail you drive in feels like it's echoing far too loudly, like you're letting the woods know you're scared. That night, you sit in your sealed cabin. Fire roaring, windows gone. The place smells like sweat and pine sap, like desperation. You listen, and you hear nothing. No wind, no owls, no coyotes, no movement. You could pretend that's peace, but it's not. It's pause, and then a knock. Not on the door, on the roof. You don't move. Your wife doesn't breathe. Then the knock again. 3 times, soft, measured, and a voice. Let me in, it's cold. But it's not a child this time. It's you. Again. Not close, not far, somewhere above. The kids don't scream. You told them not to, no matter what they hear. But you hear shuffling now. The sound of someone crawling on hands and knees across the thatched roof, careful and slow. You grab your musket and climb the ladder into the loft. You whisper to the kids to stay against the wall. You peer out the chimney clean-out, just enough to see the peak of the roof. There's something there, not a person, not exactly. It has a human shape, but the way it moves, and crooked. Too fluid, like it's learning how limbs work, but hasn't gotten it quite right. It doesn't see you, not yet. You back away slowly. That's when your son grabs your arm and whispers, "It made a new bundle." You stop. Where? He points to the hearth. You crawl down, careful not to make a sound. And there, in front of the fire, is another bundle. Smaller. Tighter. Still tied. You didn't hear it get in. You didn't hear anything. Your wife moves to touch it. You grab her wrist, shake your head. The bundle shivers. And from inside her you hear it. A heartbeat. Slow, steady. And familiar. Exactly like your own. You don't touch the bundle. Not this time. You don't even get close. You just stare. Heart pounding, muscles locked like you've been frozen from the inside out. The fire crackles behind it, casting little shadows that dance across the floor. And in those shadows, you swear you see movement. Small, twitchy jerks like something inside is trying to turn over. The heartbeat thuds on, slow and steady, like it belongs to a living thing that hasn't realised it's not in a body anymore. Your wife steps back from it without a word. Her eyes are wet, but she doesn't blink. She just whispers, "That's yours." You know she's right. You feel it. Not like a guess or a suspicion. It's yours. That rhythm, that pulse, it matches your own. And it's not just familiarity. It's connection. You feel it in your chest now, subtly synced with every beat from the bundle. Like it's echoing you. You want to crush it, burn it. bury it in 100 feet of soil and forget it ever happened. But you don't. Because part of you, the part that's been slowly splitting away from logic these past few weeks, knows that doing anything to it might do something to you. Instead, you back away. You keep your musket raised. Your wife crouches near the children, arms wrapped around both of them, whispering comfort neither of them believes. The dog's growling again, low and constant, staring at the hearth like she's ready to jump into the fire if it'll protect you. Then another knock. Not above, not behind. This time from under the floor. 3 knocks, rhythmic, the kind that makes your teeth ache. You look at the trapdoor, even though you can't see it beneath the stacked furniture. You feel it, like something under you just reached up and tapped on your bones. The heartbeat in the bundle speeds up. You grab the fireplace tongs and, keeping a wide arc, slide the bundle toward the wall. It's warm to the touch, even through the tongs. Too warm. You can feel it radiating heat like a living body wrapped in cloth. The moment it moves, a voice hisses through the floorboards. Don't! You freeze. The kids flinch. Your wife gasps. It's your voice again. Only this time it's laced with anger. Not mimicry anymore. Not practice. Emotion, then silence. You leave the bundle by the wall. You throw salt around it, even though you're nearly out. Then you bank the fire high, just in case the thing's shadow needs light to behave. For hours, nothing moves. Until the fire burns low, and that's when you hear the dragging. It starts behind the hearth. Scrape, shuffle, scrape. Something under the house is circling. You feel the vibrations through the floor, feel the wood groan softly under the pressure. Then more knocking, this time from different corners, first beneath the door, then beneath the loft ladder, then beneath the bed. 3 knocks each, always 3, and always followed by the voice. Let me in. Let me be you. Let me finish. It's not just yours anymore. It shifts. Sometimes your son's voice, sometimes your wife's, sometimes something else, something you've never heard before but that still sends cold down your spine. A child's voice that laughs between words. A woman's whisper that doesn't use breath. A voice that sounds like cracking ice. You go to the hearth and toss in more wood, fingers numb. You don't look at the bundle. You don't have to. You can feel it pulsing. Your wife grips your arm and says, "We're not going to make it another night." You want to say something reassuring. You want to promise her it's almost over, that you'll protect them, that you'll burn the house down before you let anything touch the children. But the truth is, you don't know how to stop this. You've built every wall, nailed every board, salted every window and door, and it still got in, through the cracks, through the dreams, through the parts of you that you left open. You remember a conversation from the first month you moved out here, before the cabin was finished. You were at the edge of the river, hauling logs, and a passing trapper stopped to say hello. He looked half wild, like someone who'd stayed in the woods too long, but his voice was kind. He said, "If you're going to stay out here, learn this. The forest ain't just trees, it's teeth. And if it starts whispering to you, whisper back, but never louder than it whispers first." At the time, you thought he was just mad. Now you think he was giving you the only advice that matters. So you sit by the fire, you close your eyes, and you whisper, "I hear you." The knocks stop. The heartbeat stills. The dog stops growling. Then you say louder, "But you can't have us." There's no reply. You look around the room. Your wife is staring at you, lips parted. The kids lean over the loft rail, listening. You hold the musket across your lap. "Whatever you are," you say, voice shaking. Whatever you want, this house is ours, and you can't have it." Then something laughs. Not from under the house, not from the roof, from inside the bundle, and it speaks. Then we wait. You don't sleep the rest of the night. You don't speak. You just watch the bundle, wait for it to move, or stop moving, or disappear. It does none of those things. It just sits there, breathing in sync with you, and the worst part, you feel it, waiting with you, like it's already inside your skin, inside your thoughts, inside your home. The forest isn't outside anymore. It's here. By the next dusk, the forest forgets to breathe. You stand at the threshold of the cabin you built with your own hands, the same one that once smelled of cedar sap and bread, and all you can smell now is smoke. The fire has eaten its way down to grey coals. The bundle by the wall is quiet, too quiet. Maybe it's sleeping. Maybe it's empty. You don't check. You've learnt that answers cost more than silence. Your wife gathers the children close, the dog curls like a question mark near the ashes, and for the first time in weeks you feel something almost like peace. Maybe exhaustion wears the same face. You step outside with the musket and stare at the tree line. The mist hangs thick, pale blue in the moonlight, wrapping the trees like gauze over an old wound. Nothing moves. No eyes gleam. Even the birds have stopped warning you. Maybe that's a good sign. Maybe they've decided you belong to the forest now. The air tastes different, cleaner somehow. You listen for the imitation voice, for the whisper under the floor, for the knock that always came in threes. Nothing. Just wind sliding through dead grass. You walk to the edge of the clearing, boots sinking in the soft ground, and look back at the cabin. From here it looks small, almost fragile, like it could be folded up and carried away. You think of all the families who did the same as you, came here chasing quiet, built homes from nothing, and found that quiet isn't the same thing as safety. The woods were never the enemy. They were a mirror. Every sound that scared you came from something you didn't understand yet. Maybe every voice that called your name was just the echo of your own fear. You kneel and press your hand to the soil. It's cold but not cruel. Beneath it are roots and insects and the bones of things that never learned to be afraid. You whisper a small apology to the woods, to whatever listened, to the part of yourself that tried to fight the darkness instead of learning to live beside it. The forest doesn't answer, but the wind shifts, soft and warm, and for a heartbeat you think that's close enough. When you go back inside, the fire catches with one last flare. The bundle is gone. Not dragged, not stolen, simply gone. In its place, a thin ring of ash and a heartbeat that isn't yours. You feel it once, faintly, then it fades. You tell your wife it's over. You don't say the word safe. That word doesn't belong here. But you sit with her until dawn anyway, fingers intertwined, watching the light creep across the floorboards. And when the sun finally breaks through the fog, you hear birds again. Ordinary, imperfect birds. The sound makes your throat ache with relief. You open the shutters. Fresh air floods in, cold but clean. The children wake, blinking against the brightness, and for a moment it feels like the house exhales with you. You still don't know what was real, what walked, or whispered, or watched. You only know that fear has a shape and you survived it. You tell yourself the forest will always remember your name, but maybe that's all right. Maybe that's how it keeps its stories straight. The land doesn't hate you, it just wanted you to listen. You did. You always did. So tonight, when you finally lie down beside the fading fire, you promise to sleep without the musket for once. Just this once. The house creaks, but gently, like it's settling rather than warning. Outside, the wind carries no voices. Only leaves, only distance, only peace. The last thing you hear before drifting off is your own breath, sinking with the dogs. Oh, did he stay real? For the first time, the sound doesn't scare you. It sounds like home.